I would like to officially call to order the Tuesday, February 5th, 2019 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. As always, we will start with a roll call. I am Brian Farabee.
Hi, I'm Jeff Bryan.
Emily Winter.
Bill Payne.
Rebecca Longshore.
Right. And first up this evening, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and under the Bolton Wetland Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider the notice of intent by Ducharme and Dillis on behalf of Chris and Emily Goswiak regarding construction of a new single-family home, well, driveway, septic system, and associated grading located at Lot 3, Long Hill Road.
I'm Jack from Ducharme and Dillis. So a little bit of a recap.
Okay.
This was the original plan that we submitted with the filing. You can see here's the 100-foot buffer. We had the structure inside. We had a boulder retaining wall, driveway, and then we went back to the drawing board and came back with this, with the house structure outside of the buffer zone. We got rid of the pump. We became a gravity-fed system. We still had the driveway in here. We did have some infiltration along in here, and we did talk to Joe Lynch, who wanted the drainage structure entrenched out in the roadway area. And then we went back again to the drawing board and came up with this, which we met with Rebecca last week. I think it was Thursday. Builders are here. Emily and her husband were at the meeting. Basically, we've taken the driveway from inside the buffer zone outside, like we had talked about, brought it up here. The house twisted a little bit to accommodate the driveway in this area here. So all the impervious area is outside the buffer zone. Okay. The only thing that we do have still in is the foundation drain that would be dumping out in here.
Okay.
Just for gravity, and it's quite a distance away from. You can see here's the 100-foot, so we're about 7 feet into it. So the drainage in here went from where the entrance was up to here. The pipe is a little bit shorter than what was proposed. I did drop a copy off to Joe last Friday. Nobody was in the office. I followed up with an email this morning. Still haven't heard from him, so he must be out and about all over town. So I can't imagine him not saying okay to this. It's very similar. We didn't really change anything. We just moved the solid pipe up to here.
Yep.
The abutter was in last week, last meeting, and gone back to a little bit of cutting and pasting and overlaying, underlaying, just so everybody could see what's going on. So this was the abutter that was talking about the proposed septic system in relationship to his well. His well is in front of the house. We're about 170 feet away downhill with our system to his well. His system is actually uphill and closer in respect to that. So not that that's a big deal, but we have this overlay to show it. There's actually a 25-foot strip in here that goes up and around, so that the actual abutter. So he's abutter to abutter, basically, on the other side. So, but we have this.
Right.
Do you want to copy this for your file?
Do you have, two questions? One, the closest distance?
Closest distance in here, which would be, I think it was like 60 feet. I don't have one on my scale, so I'm not misquoting.
I hate to go off topic, but can I ask quick, is anybody here tonight for Nashway Road? Okay. They have asked for a continuance. I just want to say we're not going to be discussing them tonight. You may. Can I ask quick, are you folks here for Nashway Road?
Yeah.
They've asked for a continuance till our next meeting. They're not going to be here tonight.
Okay, when's the next meeting?
We have to
Will
set
be
that
determined
date.
during
Yeah,
this
yeah.
meeting.
We have
It'll
to
be
set-
online though.
And it will be online under Conservation
Yep.
Committee or something?
Yep, so in the minutes. when we
Okay.
post this one.
Sorry, thank you. Sorry, Chad.
65 feet to the toe of the slope right in through here would be the closest.
Okay.
And that's, again, that's going to be a grassed slope when we're done with it.
Right.
So everything, all the boulder wall's gone, the driveway is gone, we pushed everything back and we just grading. And this is grading that's required for the septic system, so.
Well, and I could see the drop on the grading stuff. How about on the slope?
It's a 3-to-1 slope. would be 65 feet right there.
Gotcha.
And that's proposed to be lawn, to be
Grass.
native grass?
Yep, and what does this say? Is it still wooded?
Yeah, that's all gonna stay as it is.
So it's really just the grading now and then the runoff basically, the pipe from the back, right?
Yep. Should be over here, the footing drain. And then all this grading in here, this is gonna get pushed around to both sides of the driveway. Some of it will swale across the front, the rest of it will get pushed down into.
What are those arrows for?
Drainage, there's a high spot back here, so when you run off coming down the hill,
It's gonna go that
get
way.
diverted that way, some of it will get diverted this way.
That's what I thought.
Just so we're not pushing it right against the house.
First, any other questions? Thanks, Rebecca. With the drainage off the back end, it's just something I hadn't seen before. It seems like it's the proper way to pull it, and it seems like there is enough room. I'm just,
Yep.
have you seen something like that? Do you have concerns with that?
What, this drainage here?
No, the
Pipes.
The footing drain?
Yeah, which it seems fine. It seems like that's the intelligent way to go. I just haven't seen it before.
Yeah, I mean, we'd rather come out this way than have it come right down to
Right,
the front
that was
this
the
way,
point
yeah.
that was made.
So the trench, it's gonna come to daylight, and again, it's only a 4-inch pipe.
Yeah.
And that is runoff from the roof?
It'll be roof, and if there's any gutters, are there gonna be gutters on this house?
It's gonna be 18 inches of crushed gravel in the front and back. to
So
accommodate
just a
the-
drip line?
Yep.
So there'll be a recharge drip line in the front and the side.
Okay.
And then this will just be footing drain, so it'll be whatever's groundwater.
Is there some pump in this thing?
No.
No.
No, because you'll have
Gotta
the
be
footing,
dry.
you'll have the footing drain around it,
Yeah.
right? Yep.
Is there anybody here to comment on this project? Okay, I'd say the change you guys made, it's great. The amount that you were able to pull out of the buffer zone. I understand there's still a small incursion, but working with the property as it was, we're kind of happy with the plans as they are. I think they made more than reasonable accommodations to get as much out as we possibly could.
They're great.
The only thing, and if we were to approve the NOI as it's submitted, could we approve it contingent upon town engineer approving of changes to the culvert?
Oh, you mean DPW?
DPW, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That would be the only, as
Yeah,
long
we're
as,
asking
if
to
he's
do-
fine with that, I think we're fine with that.
They're great.
Depending on when the next meeting is, you can always close and then vote next meeting with, contingent upon, that would be dependent on how the commission votes. Could be.
Right.
But, or you could close, vote, and then establish that it's contingent upon the DPW approving.
And we have the DPW number and everything.
DEP number, yeah.
DEP number,
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
DPW.
The only thing that they commented was to ask about data sheets, basically, on how the wetland was delineated, which you had
Which we
sent
provided.
previously.
Yep.
Okay. I'm trying to think what.
I would go contingent upon, just so we're not, I don't have to bring it back up.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we don't
Yeah.
have any further questions, right, so.
I mean, I really don't. This gives you some certainty that it's approved, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing for Lot 3, Long Hill Road.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the notice of intent for Lot 3, Long Hill Road as submitted at this meeting and issue an order of conditions contingent upon
DPW approval.
DPW approval of minor changes to the culvert design at this meeting.
I don't have to remember that, but go ahead.
All right. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Good luck.
guys.
I'm glad you get it figured out.
Well, just, we came in with what the homeowner wanted to do, so,
That's good.
and then just tweaked it from there, so.
That's good.
Yeah,
Good.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay.
Open the window.
Wall bonus.
Yeah.
Can sign.
birthdays don't matter anymore. Come on now.
Forget about it.
My birthday's in the summer.
We've both been planning. We've been planning.
You've been
For your
planning.
birthday, yeah.
Already?
Yes, just to make sure.
We have a subcommittee and everything.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm
We're
sorry.
gonna hold a very long conservation commission
Yes.
meeting on that.
Great.
Yeah, in your honor. We're gonna try to break the record. Are you ready? Take one. All right. All right, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now hold a public hearing under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and under the Bolton Wetland Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider the request for determination of applicability submitted by Dana Shog regarding the proposed swimming pool, adjacent plantings, wall modifications, and pool fencing located at 139 Green Road. The public meeting to begin right now.
I'm the only guy here left, so.
Well, yeah.
That's not a bad thing. Keep it that way.
So this was, my name is Dana Shock, I'm a landscape architect who's helping the Burdicks out here on a swimming pool project that they wanted to do. So as with all these projects, my first step was to call my surveyor, get a survey done of the property. When he did his research, called me, said, hey, I'm on the data mapping and there's a river indicated on this property that we may have to deal with. I said, okay. So we followed that up. I got my wetlands guy in and did a field flagging and we did all that and I submitted that. So this was a case where our scope of work is well within, there's the 100-foot buffer zone. So even at my closest point, this is 20th scale, we're 40 feet away from the 100-foot buffer. Here, so what happened, the delineation, what was showing on the initial mapping was sort of showing this river, and I know Rebecca was out there too, sort of going along here, but it was not, the field survey was not consistent with the mapping. So the determination of the start, and a river is a little bit of a stretch on this, but it's a river, we're using a river.
Yeah.
So this was determined, the start of this river was here, that was then plotted by the wetlands guy, surveyor came back and shot it and did it here. This part of the area was mostly sort of described as a wet meadow and intermittent, more swampy than any running river. So I began my design based on this data. So I kept everything within the 100-foot buffer zone. Then with the surveyor, I took off our origin of river. And this red line is the mark at 200 feet.
Right.
So this is also, just so you know, just as a sidelight, this is all a previously disturbed yard. It's a mowed lawn. We're not taking down any vegetation. It's just putting the pool. So I've designed this to keep everything outside of that. We're well outside the buffer zone. And then there's the 200-foot mark. And as I said, this light green indicates what is a maintained mowed lawn now.
Currently existing. Okay.
Yeah, so I said we don't have to, it's just open lawn, we don't have to take down any trees, there's nothing there, no vegetation beyond the lawn. So it's sort of just digging the hole and putting the pool in.
And it is lawn, they have a significant slope at the rear of the.
Sort of here, it sort of rolls
relatively
here,
level,
and then
it goes
you can see
down
by the topo,
Where it
and it
really
slopes
drops
down
to
towards the
tree
woods line.
So it's all lawn.
Right.
that we can
The
do.
river flows
towards your left hand.
It goes this way, right, down this way. So that's where it
So
originates.
it's
So
all-
there's that wall, it's all in this lawn area. And this
Okay.
isn't even at the toe of the slope. This
Yeah,
is-
so everything's clear basically with being right now.
Yeah,
What
and then
exists.
in his research, it was noted on this report, there's a more up-to-date, you might have seen this, Rebecca, more up-to-date DEP mapping that was more consistent. It had been resolved
Right here.
for the field
I see.
to what was seen in the field. So that was why I was here, just there was a conflict between what is actually in the field and what was on the database from way back, whenever that was generated.
I'd be interested to get everybody's comments and Rebecca's too.
Yeah.
Generally with something like this, with it being existing lawn, there aren't too many concerns I have right away. The one thing we do like to see is there's an operation and management plan for the pool just making crystal clear that
Yeah.
you cannot pump the pool downhill.
You know what I do?
Which is the logical thing that everybody thinks is they dump a hose
Totally
down that
get ya.
slope, right? That's the one thing that we like to see with these, is to make it as clear as possible.
The
Don't
one thing that I
dump the pool
do,
down.
I bring a lot of projects in front of conservation.
Yeah.
I've done this a million times. And of course, like everybody, sort of, I don't know how you enforce it, but I'm pretty
It's a
disciplined
discipline,
about
yeah,
this.
it
What I
is.
do on almost every job, pretty much every job where it involves any level of conservation, is when they draw that pool down to winterize it or whatever,
Right.
I have them, and you can even write it in any conditions if you want, I have them pump it right back, you can bring a water truck right there, almost a reverse fill, and you
Right.
truck it off. And I do that, I probably have half a dozen customers who do that now.
So
And
do
they're
you own
good about it.
You own the truck too?
I do not own a truck, I should be in the water.
Yeah,
business,
see, I
so.
thought about this, yeah.
Um,
But that, that's the one thing that normally I would say is just to.
Or you can do the dewatering pit that you can put on a, which people
Down
can
where-
do.
Go ahead, Jim.
What are you gonna do with the dirt when you dig it out? Where is that gonna be staged?
Some of it, we will still, I show this on here, we'll put erosion control on
Erosion
it
control.
during things. And some of it will be used, we'll see what we get out of there.
Yeah.
The loam is usually used for, if it's
Other
decent
stuff.
stuff, recycled, and the stuff gets trucked away.
I noticed it says ledge right there. What do you think's underneath the pool?
We'll find out. We'll find out, wouldn't be the first thing to get ledge on a pool.
I'm sure there's a rock or two in there.
There's no rocks involved.
No,
No, yeah.
I was more concerned about the, and I'm glad you're gonna put the, silt.
Yeah, well, I always do all
What are you
that.
proposing for erosion control?
You tell me what you want. I mean, different towns
Oh, we-
like to see different things.
Okay.
So if you have something that you prefer, that's what we would do.
Typically, we leave it up to the engineer, and then if
Okay.
what they're proposing, we believe might need supplementary after going out and seeing the site, or even after looking at plans, that's when we would suggest supplementary erosion controls,
Mhm.
but, it's better for us to see what your.
I mean, I've done the wattles backed up by silt fence.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Other questions? All right. Other questions? You?
I don't, aside from just establishing what erosion control is to be used. I did go out on site, not for a full-fledged site visit, but we did go down, to the area that was in question, that was really the focus of the visit. To confirm that, yes, there is, a channel prior, and then there's a spillway, and then it gets wider. So after the spillway, that's why you see it's almost like a semicircle.
This part.
And that's how,
Yeah.
and that's how, you basically have to display it on a map. If it ends, just like we've seen in other projects, in a
This.
pond or something like that, it ends in a semicircle, so you're not continuing and it cuts off.
Right.
Because that resource area is enveloped within that 200-foot area.
All right. Do we have a DEP number for this one?
This is an RDA.
Oh, it's an RDA, all right, sorry. So, those are basically the two things I'm trying to figure out the best way to deal with is, one, setting up erosion controls, like whether that's something we can vote on now and say contingent upon, or if it's something we need to see and react to, and I'll get other people's thoughts on that. And then just that ongoing operations and management plan, basically some sort of management plan that says that it's not going to be pumped
Right.
downhill, that, any draining, the filling of the pool has to be from outside. Has to be drained outside the buffer zone, not towards. And then usually something, and I'm not sure it's already noted in the RDA, but as I'm saying, any materials removed or anything stockpiled for the project, kept out of that buffer zone, looks like there's
yeah.
plenty of, right, it looks like there's plenty of room.
Yeah, we've got.
Shouldn't be a problem, but it's just one of those things we really have to have in writing, or we like to have in writing to
Okay.
make sure. That said, I don't know if it's worth holding up the RDA and trying to get these, or if that's something we can easily say contingent upon and get the wording right for.
What do you mean, oh,
Yeah, if we were to close, I mean, we can close tonight regardless, but if we were to close, if we were to issue an RDA, can we get the proper language in saying, you know, contingent upon these three things? We don't want to say, if you see where I'm getting stuck.
I do. So what I would do is I would just say contingent upon attached special conditions, and I'll attach those three items.
Okay.
And then you'll provide us with the operation management or the statement or description saying about how that's going to be addressed. The type of erosion controls and
No discharge of water in the buffer zone and no stockpiling of excavated material in the buffer zone. So, 3 items.
Okay. So it would be, God, -5 with the following special conditions? If that were the way we, yeah, sorry.
So none of the landscaping is going to be within the 200-foot,
No.
even though it looks like it just brushes it
Just
on
touches
top?
Oh,
Spec.
well, it's just planting.
Okay, so that's over.
Any poison ivy on the,
It's Bolton.
legend poison
Oh,
ivy?
I heard you talk about coyote. You know, the other thing too, when I was going out there, I was meeting my guy out there, and Drew Burdick, the owner, he puts an email for a number of things, and he goes, by the way, just a heads up,
Yeah, you
there's
should say
been
what the
bears
following, I'll say
spotted
what
in
the
the
Oh, yeah.
backyard.
Special condition.
Cracks me
Yeah.
up because growing up, we had bears every day.
Did you grow up in Bolton?
No, I grew up in West, just an hour west, but
Oh.
it was just normal. And
It's-
here, everyone
Oh.
panics, like, oh my God, there's a
Really?
bear.
You had
Yeah.
one that, I don't know if you know where the library is up
I
there.
do, yeah.
This walk was over on Manor Road, which is the street he lives on and I live on. And it went across to the library and then crossed over the 117 and took off in that direction.
Yeah. So
I see the orchards right up behind there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, right up to your house.
Getting drunk
Yeah.
on fermented apples.
For months.
That's the thing, as long as there's food around, the bears are fine. Like,
Yeah.
as long as there's plenty of apples, goes.
They rarely,
Yeah.
they rarely attack people.
And you're seeing the coyotes around?
Oh, yeah.
Coyotes are down the Cape a lot. I'm down
Yeah.
the Cape a lot, showing jobs, and the
Yeah.
coyotes are really.
The thing about the bears in this part of the world is they want to eat what you eat. You go out west, they want to eat you.
Yeah, they say, like, the black bears sort of don't
They just
bother
don't
you,
care.
right?
Right. Unless you get between them all.
You'd have to
Yeah,
mess
right.
up pretty
I
bad.
got a great story about that. I'll share it after the meeting, after the
No, but
meeting.
you gotta mess
Offline.
up.
I got a great story.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna make a motion, unless anybody has any further comments, questions? Alright, I'm gonna make a motion that we close the public hearing for 139 Green Road.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to make a motion that we have a -5 determination for the RDA for 139 Green Road with the following special conditions attached. So then, can I just, do I have to try to list them, or can I say as discussed?
You can say,
As previously discussed at this meeting. Do I hear a second?
No, we're voting now, right?
No,
No,
we're looking for a second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you.
So you'll get something to me, Rebecca, and then I will, I'll call you when the erosion control's up.
yep, so I
That'll be the
will.
first thing
Is it
that
the
happens.
Nashaway Road?
Yeah, I will email you.
They've asked to continue
Yeah.
till next meeting.
I had a feeling.
Yeah, so
I
they're
didn't
done.
see it on the,
I will just ask for that.
We found out, yeah,
About the
this
pumping,
afternoon.
so I need
So
to
we
get
caught some of your neighbors
attached
coming
to
in,
this.
and I said, no, I said, you what can I
What
say?
erosion
When
controls
is the
you'll be
next-
using.
We haven't set our
And
date
then
yet,
where the
it's
soil,
probably in 2
so
weeks.
whether you send front of house
It'll
or
get
something
posted on the
has to be
town
on the same
website.
Yeah, right.
list.
Outside
Is it
buffer
close
zone,
to-
right?
Yeah, and then I'll
Postponed
attach
the,
it to this and then.
The applicant,
Survey?
yeah,
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 this-
they didn't have what they
Yeah,
needed
they're
to finish
scheduled
their
for
questions.
19.
Put up the erosion
What level do you
controls.
want?
Sometimes they need more time to think it through, yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like a nice.
Like I did.
Yeah, I'm sorry, thanks for coming out.
Water.
Appreciate that you care, I really do.
All day.
Yeah, that's
But,
It's fine, so long
I
as
mean-
it's not being pumped
Oh, shit.
into.
No, but can they also put a hose over here and pump it?
So long as it's not going into the wetland buffer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And really, we'd rather it to be pumped off.
Yeah, I know, I totally get it.
But,
Okay.
it's one of those things, and
yeah.
it's a difficult one. As you said, sometimes it's hard for us to enforce, and I have a feeling we say you have to truck it off,
Yeah.
people are just gonna pour it down the hill.
Right.
Whereas if we say, just don't pour it down the hill,
Yeah, I
Right.
know.
they may at least try to do it in a
Yeah, of
responsible
course.
way, is
Yeah.
my feeling on that,
Yeah.
but I could be wrong.
No, totally get it.
Okay. So I'll email you tomorrow.
Okay, all good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff, too much fun again.
I know. Sorry. Just crowded, this meeting is so crowded.
Conservation's always.
I'm having fun.
Not sure if we're ready for COC.
Yeah. Well,
I don't really need to.
but,
Yeah.
you don't need to.
Okay. Okay. But next on our agenda this evening is discussion regarding a request for a certificate of compliance, for 14 Wattaquatic Hill Road concerning the parking area regrading, stormwater structures, and paving.
So this, obviously, they've come and requested a certificate of compliance. They actually requested it, sorry.
Was this for the church?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
They actually requested it earlier, but I let them know that per their order of conditions, they need an as-built, they need a site inspection, they need to come for permission again. And they were looking to remove some erosion control, so I went out to inspect it and allowed them to remove the portions that were stabilized. And just basically stated the rest of it is closest to the resource areas, so I couldn't just say, pull it without a COC. But I really didn't have any issues out there. We received a letter from Ducharme Dillis stating that the work has been completed in substantial compliance with the approved plans, with the order of conditions, and they also support the request for a certificate of compliance. So this is the as-built, just to familiarize yourself. So here is the church, here is Wattaquatic, here's the drive-in, Memorial Field over here. They paved this area, created outlet structures basically, or outlet infrastructures. And then it seemed to be functioning properly before we got all the snow. And now I haven't been back out today, but it seemed fine and stable at that point. So the erosion control line is still up though at the rear here.
And there- that's contingent upon basically the COC being issued.
Yes, and the only thing, but it's typically either an ongoing condition or at times from the files I've read, it does seem the commission does leave it open for the 2 seasons of growing, but we've been through one, we'll be in the next in a couple months, so we can leave it as an ongoing condition that plantings need to be replaced if they're failing, or just wait. But they seem to be fine, but that's just
With either?
typical.
With-
No, I'm saying the plantings seem to be viable.
Oh, I thought you meant that they were happy with going either way here, but I understand what you're saying.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm fine issuing these here.
I am too.
The only thing I would say with the 2 years, we probably should do an ongoing order. I have no doubt that those plantings are gonna take, but just for consistency, if we let it go here, we get it. So, that's it. like to make a motion that we issue a certificate of compliance for 14 Aquatic Hill Road with the following ongoing conditions. That any plantings that don't make it through the second year
Be replaced, replanted?
be replaced and replanted as necessary. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
This one nice and fast. Do this while you're writing. The Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing for a notice of, will now continue the public hearing under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and under the Bolton Wetland Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider the notice of intent for 31 Nashway Road, proposed single-family home driveway and associated septic. I believe we have heard from the applicants that they have requested a continuance until our next meeting.
Correct.
In that case, I would like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 31 Nashway Road until our next public meeting. Wow, which we have to figure out, don't we?
We have that, that's the 19th, right?
Yeah, 14 days away.
And I'm still
Is that
fine
school
with that.
vacation?
That's school vacation week, yeah.
You want to do it
Does that
21
still
days
work?
away?
I'm around if it-
I'll be here that way, yeah, we're not
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine then.
19th, so, all right.
That's fine.
I
So-
we had said the 19th, of the last meeting. I think we just picked those two
Yeah,
days.
because it was the 2 weeks out, and
Yeah.
it still works.
That's
All right.
fine.
So continue to our next public meeting, Tuesday, February 19th at, is there a time?
7.
At 7 PM. All those in favor?
Second.
So continue, yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so continue. Sorry. It's easy with the can't handle. I can do that. Actually, that'll be good at 7, because that'll be the one with public comment, and everybody else get here early.
Well, what time? 7:45. Oh, we can, we have to address the other business at the bottom first.
Yep.
Someone is coming in, Brandon is coming in for Keys Farm at
Okay.
8 o'clock.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone is coming in for 7:45.
Okay.
And 1:47, there's supposed to be someone coming in as well.
Okay.
So we can do minutes and the other
We
business.
sure can.
Who had the second on National?
It's Jen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did everybody have a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting? No. Do you want to take a quick look? Please.
Thank you.
And if you didn't hear what Rebecca was just saying, we are expecting somebody in to talk at Keys Farm, but they were coming at 8 because they know we have 7:40 to go around. And same thing with 147, they may or may not be here, but it probably won't be until a little later.
So, do we put the lights in Memorial Field? I think so.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about it, but yes.
I thought it was though. That's okay.
Ted's comments on the minutes?
Yeah,
I'm
chance
good.
it, are you sure?
I'm good, yeah.
All right, in that case, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes for our January 15, 2019 meeting as drafted and submitted.
Oh, yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So Tom Denny Nature Camp obviously has started their registration process, but I guess in that sense, they have, again, requested the use of Bower Springs Conservation Area for the new members. It's a summer camp that runs at Bower Springs Conservation Area over a few weeks during the summer, and it's environmentally focused. They do different projects, and that leads us into another item that I didn't include on here, but it's part of that, and that is they look for conservation projects every year. And last year we did water testing, we did a bridge.
Trail bridge.
So you don't have to come up with anything this evening, but if you think of an idea, it can be on the side closest to, so the eastern side of Lawn Hills, where they go through during trail walks, or Bower Springs itself. Whether it's improving trails, whether it's plantings, water testing, invasives. We typically stayed away from invasive removal though, just because of the extent of poison ivy there. And they don't obviously like encouraging the kids to hold things close to poison ivy. But, and the goats, we wanna do
I
that.
can try to do the goats this year.
You have goats, right?
We've got 3 big boys that would go.
Mhm.
They're pretty hardy.
Do we need to approve their using of it? I know we generally do.
I mean, it would be nice just to have on record, but as they're already through the, starting the
Registration
process,
process.
it's sort of
Seems like
assumed
it's
at this
a little-
point.
Yeah.
I have to say, like, some of their picnic tables that we used, we borrowed them, that they're in terrible condition.
The picnic table
When we used them for the dinner that we had back in September.
Oh,
Where'd you,
Well, they're behind a trailer now, but they're not in,
the container, you mean?
yeah, behind the container, there's
Yeah.
a couple
What's
of
wrong
picnic
with
tables.
them?
One of them, a whole bunch of them were sort of rusted out, a couple of pieces broke.
When?
When we were bringing them back for dinner.
Okay.
Didn't I mention that to you?
you in
No.
trouble?
Yes, I could be.
So those are town owned.
Oh, okay, so then I take it back. But they're not, there was a couple of rusted out
Okay.
things on it that you might wanna check. I'm sure I mentioned that to you.
Those are
one time.
town hall.
So for projects for the summer camp, can we do biology or chemistry things?
Yes.
They would love to do it, yeah, if the next.
Of
See if we can come up
course.
with a water chemistry project of some sort.
Well, I can show you the testing kits we got. They're very basic, but we did do that last year and it was a huge hit. But
Let me look, I'll dig into something.
yes, that would be great.
You think it was a bigger hit than making those?
No, I think making a bridge was also a big
That's
hit,
just
but-
from-
Yeah, with that hammers and nails, so fun too, yeah.
I mean, you went over, picked up a little bit of water I had to carry and give to these kids with poison ivy and everything else like that without their parents knowing it.
I was gonna say, the Trails Committee always does a great job of it, but I always wonder about redoing some of the blazes. I just don't know if that's,
Yeah.
it's definitely a project they can do, but just
Yeah,
some of those trail blazes either repaint or some of the ones that are nailed up or broken,
You could do that.
gives them an excuse to hit all the trails. But honestly, you guys, I mean, I think our trails
That's a
are
good
are
idea.
better marked than 90%
Good
of like the
idea.
town trails I've seen in Massachusetts.
That's a
You
good
guys do a
idea.
good job.
Maybe we could even have designed that Tom Denny trail blaze, never mind.
Maybe, I don't know.
Another bridge, we can put another bridge in there somewhere.
Always build a bridge. grant application update?
Oh, yes, so the budget has yet to be approved by advisory, so, which it will probably be put off until they go through all the budgets and then return to a Parks and Rec is in the same position along with, I think, one, if not two other departments. And that is directly related to the Mass Trails grant application because it has been submitted, but noted on it specifically, it is contingent upon the budget being approved and securing those funds, because right now, we aren't in a position to say that those funds are secured in order to apply. So it most likely will affect our application, but I don't think it will affect it significantly, but we'll see. So we'll wait to hear back from that. The workshop, the first workshop of many, or of 4 scheduled now, regarding success stories of conservation, had a great turnout and some great results and some great feedback came from it as well. So we're excited for the next one, which
There's
will be in
got a
April.
lot of press.
Yes, we did get a lot of press coverage, which was, in my mind, unexpected, but happily
No,
received,
yeah,
I
a lot.
guess.
We had to drive by that one, and it was like, oh, I hope that, this, wow, like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
packed, yeah, I was like, that's good, all right.
Yeah, we were excited when the first 2 people showed up, and then they just kept coming in, and,
That's great.
yeah,
I don't think any leftover pie, did you?
oh, yeah. Yeah.
I missed it.
You did. You did.
There was
I
pie.
know, yeah.
We had
Jeez.
4 different flavors of pie. That's great.
So anybody watching at home, yeah, if you
Yeah,
wanna
you
go.
missed it.
Future
Yes,
sessions.
come to the next one,
Hi,
there is food.
yeah.
What is the next one?
It's on the conservation
I'll take a look.
website.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
I believe it's in April,
I planned on going to this one.
yes. I know, we had a conversation about pie, I think.
Totally.
Maybe it wasn't you, maybe it was someone else. And then trail work, a high school student reached out to the trust for an honors program project. And so myself, Jeff, Betsy, and Gordon, I believe, from the Trails Committee and the trust will be out on Saturday assisting with trail marking, boundary marking on either Haynes, Wheeler, or Von Hills. So,
What time are we meeting on Saturday?
new. Did you want to determine the March meeting dates?
I'm happy, we should
Sure.
probably get at least one, so next meeting we
Yeah.
know where to continue people to. So, in theory, if we were going to the 19th, it would be what, the 1st and 3rd?
So the 5th and 19th.
So the 5th we'll do like margaritas and.
I cannot
Conference
do
and
the
stuff.
5th,
You
unfortunately.
can't do the 5th. Can you do the 19th?
I can do the 19th, I can do the 12th, and I think I can do the 26th as well. So I can do any of the other Tuesdays, just not the 5th.
Is everyone good with the 19th?
Yep. What if can we do a Wednesday? Could we do
I
like the
would
6th?
have to go back and check. I can look at the schedule though.
I could do that Wednesday the 6th, though. I mean,
Okay.
if it is possible, like, others could do it, I can do the 6th.
I could do it too.
So March 6th. Okay, I will try for that. I will look tomorrow on the.
So we're gonna put
calendar.
19th on the calendar.
So we'll do 19th for now and then,
19th
check
of February for
tomorrow once I have
Concom.
it.
Yeah, but also March 19th.
March as well.
Brian has a big Mardi Gras party on the 5th, so
I'm going to the Bruins game. So, yay. Finally.
that's fun.
That's exciting.
I know. I have that all year. Usually I get to at least one game a year. All right.
We did get
See.
the, speaking of trail work,
Go ahead.
we did get the work with Greg and his son Nick, to do the
Oh, the scout project.
scout
yes.
project. That's signed off on that on Tuesday. He came by. So that's in the works.
Okay. Next on the agenda is a request for a certificate of compliance for 1 Century Mill Road, of the completion of restoration plantings at the rear of the lot and on an adjacent property. Do we have an update?
So I had received, I spoke to the property, you can come. I spoke to the property owner, they've come in to request a certificate of compliance, and then shortly after, I received documentation from Goddard Consulting regarding the, restoration work that was
Yeah, please.
required of this property owner when they had done some work, in 2006. So it was determined that it was within the 100-foot buffer, therefore the adjacent upland resource area under the local bylaw, and they were required to do some restoration plantings. The documentation that came in had basically stated that the plantings had been completed, didn't give a date when it had been completed, and it stated that the plants did not survive, and it was the thought of the wetland scientists that there would be no replication work necessary further to replant those, because now there's a new ORAD on the adjacent property stating that it's not within the buffer area. Under the local regulations, it's still applicable because that enforcement and that work was required in 2006. We don't necessarily waive those requirements because it's been years and now lines have changed for various reasons. There's a purpose at that time for that work to be completed. If the plantings didn't serve at first, there's nothing in the file that establishes when things were planted, if they were planted. And I'm not saying it's incorrect what's been stated, but typically we receive that information and it's required when those plantings are done. In addition, I was able to get out there today at the request of, or at the allowance of the applicant, and he stated to go out there, take a look. They aren't up, obviously, and I let him know that so long as there's not a significant snow cover and I can see what I can see, I'll be able to report back. And I couldn't really see anything, obviously, so whether they didn't survive and how other things have grown up, that could be the case as well, but they're certainly not the required plantings that are there.
Okay. So, I was just say, is this the original plantings that were called for, or is that what I'm getting?
Yes.
Okay, go
This
ahead.
is the planning plan from the original MOI.
Okay.
What year was that?
2006.
All right. So we're looking for certificate of compliance, basically. We don't think the restoration was done. Well, and not that we don't think it survived if it was done, and we're not at a point where we can look and see if it's naturalized in a way that's
Correct.
okay. So that said, I would think we'd wait until the spring until we could go in and see, or at least until conditions where we can go and look and see what exists there now.
So,
Go
just
ahead.
to be clear, Brian, I don't mean to interrupt.
No,
There
no.
wasn't snow cover, so I could see what was there now.
Okay.
And just like this report, it's saying that as of December 2018, the restoration work under the order of conditions was performed, however, the plants did not survive. So that doesn't tell me when it was planted, when they died, and there was no more need to replace them, which is in condition in the order of conditions. So this just states they don't survive. It doesn't state, we have no documentation stating one way or another, just that they're not there, and that explains why they're not there, because they didn't survive, but there's nothing stating that they were planted, and then when they didn't survive, that they were then replanted again.
So they need to be planted again? Is that the moral of the story?
Not necessarily, my
Okay.
suggestion though, or not my suggestion. I guess it's more of, that's up to the commission. Is this in compliance because of the reasons stated, whether they didn't survive, whether the new ORAD establishes that it's outside of the buffer area, or that, they do need to be replanted.
What is there now?
I mean, it was 12 years ago.
Not,
Is it just
not
like
what's
lawn?
required.
But is it
No,
lawn?
it's not lawn, it's a wooded area.
Okay, got
It
it.
has grown up, it is wooded now.
Oh, yeah, it's,
So you couldn't plant trees there now anyways, right?
Yes.
So you'd have a hard time planting bushes in there.
yeah.
Was this all bushes that were originally called for? Do we have
a
like a
different
planting
colored
schedule?
plant.
I believe sweet pepper bush, and I cannot recall the other shrub, but it was
Okay.
mostly shrubs.
It was shrubs, and now it's pretty much overgrown anyways.
Exactly.
So it was originally in the buffer, a wetland buffer?
The commission
Correct.
presumed that it was within wetland buffer
Okay.
because at the time there was no delineation.
Okay.
So,
So how were the original plantings selected? Why were those specific plantings required? I guess is my question.
Yeah,
Was it
it's-
lawn previously and now it's wood and we had
No.
asked?
What had happened,
I just don't
they
get the
had
history.
basically filled an area that they had assumed was resource area.
Okay,
So, and fill, meaning they were grading in that area. if
Okay.
I'm Understanding correctly.
I believe one of the order of conditions it says that they clear cut the area. It didn't
Okay.
exactly mention the
Okay.
fill, everything was.
so it may have originally been wooded, they cut trees
Exactly.
down.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
And how big is the area? It doesn't look that large.
It's not.
and now it's kind of regrown with what may have been there before, tree species?
Yes, I mean, it's natural established.
So,
Yeah, it's
I
naturally
mean,
established.
I feel like that's better than
Yeah. And then,
shrubs.
sorry to interrupt, another question arises, I mean, even if the commission was required that we redo the replication, I mean, the question arises, does the Board of Commission have jurisdiction over an area that's not protected under the Wetland Protection Act? What do you think?
So-
Well,
I think you're better going with the previous
Yeah.
discussion because I did reach out to DEP to just confirm that. because-
Yes, that's it.
Just to be sure.
And
it does,
It does.
actually, so it goes with the standing
Yeah.
order of conditions, as you move throughout, unless there's a new proposal that order of conditions is either closed out because it's denied, or it's, it was never completed in compliance.
Yes, it's a pretty interesting case.
I mean, to an extent, it's not, and as you say, in the past, we've done it where replications didn't take, but an area did basically renaturalize. So
Yes.
we're telling somebody to rip it out and replant it would be foolish.
Right.
But I completely reject the notion, if it was on the original ORAD, you cannot not do what's on your order of conditions and hope that the wetland changes. You can't run out the clock and wait for the wetlands to shift. If it was on there originally, like, it needed to be done. Like, I'm more than willing to grant that this renaturalized, but to say like, well, the wetlands aren't there anymore, so it doesn't count anymore, it should have been done originally. There's no getting out of that, there's no running out the clock.
Yes, just a correction.
That's all I'm
Just
saying,
that
yeah.
There was no ORAD, I just want to make that.
Okay,
Yes, yeah, there
I
was
got
no
you, this
ORAD.
was on what was assumed
Yes,
at
exactly.
the time.
There
I
was
got
no
you, that
ORAD.
makes more sense.
So there's no delineation?
No, no
Yeah.
delineation was done.
I think the fact that it's renaturalized is better than having pepper plants.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's renaturalized now.
But if they agreed to naturalize it, I mean, to
They have
do
to
it,
rip
and then
out-
they didn't do it.
But I mean, what's the other option, that they rip out what's
No,
there and now they go back
No,
to
no,
plant
yeah,
this,
it's
right?
naturalized.
I mean, it's kind of like that ship has
Yes.
sailed at this
Right.
point.
And-
They want them
usually-
to rip it out.
The selection of what to plant would be non-invasive species or naturally occurring species to the area, and basically you
Yeah.
can pick whatever you like.
Yes, you basically rip off what's out there and just plant the.
Right,
some
just
stuff.
The only question I would have, and again, like we've run into it in the past, there's no point in you having you rip up something that's naturalized, just to plant natural plants and hope they retake. The only question is, does it have invasives? Were you able to spot? If it's filled in with invasives or something like that, we are probably gonna ask you to rip those out and replant natural plants.
So I would suggest their wetland scientists to go back out and establish that. I was not looking for them. I mean, I didn't notice bittersweet or something obvious there.
Right.
But I was looking for the planting specifically, and noted they weren't there. I was there to look for invasive species admittedly, so.
Right, and, you know, again, it's Bolton, there's only keeping so much of it out. But did it seem from you being out there that it was basically overrun with something else, or did it feel naturalized to the area? I mean, I know it's a hard determination just to make, but.
I can't really say for certain. I don't think it wasn't a wall of multiflora rose or bittersweet or knotweed or anything like that, but like I said, I wasn't going to each plant
Right.
looking.
Right.
But at least those plants weren't present.
Danny Cano. Is anybody here tonight to comment on Lot 1 Century Mill Road? That's all right. Strong thoughts, questions, feelings?
Well, I made it my point, but you're right. I mean, but they didn't do it at the time and just ignored it.
Yeah.
And now here we are.
Yeah.
So,
I would like to note that the applicant did perform the plantings.
Okay.
He did.
but you didn't tell us.
Yes, I believe that's what might happen.
Submit, but,
But then again, even if we were to do evasives removal, I cannot guarantee that those will not come back, because that's what's natural out there on the
Oh, sure.
buffer zone.
Oh, sure, but,
So-
you know, you don't clear cut the buffer zone, and you don't have this problem.
Yeah.
And not you, but I'm saying to the applicant, there's a reason they were asked to replant, because they clear cut something they shouldn't, and messing with buffer zones is a very bad idea. Very bad idea, it's 2019, it's a health and wellness issue for the entire community. When you cut it down, you pay a price. You know, this is not a like, oh, whatever. They were asked to replant for a very specific reason. Again, I'm willing to admit, there's no reason to tear out a healthy ecosystem to try to replant a healthy ecosystem.
Right.
You're cutting off your nose to spite your face. But it's not
have to
just an
make sure.
insignificant thing that happened. My initial thing right now is oftentimes we'll do site visits, and that's kind of where, personally, I would be at. I'd like to go out, take a look, see what grew there, and if it's what we expect to find there, and you know, again, there's some invasives everywhere in town. It's not going to be perfect. I'm more than willing to say we're better off just leaving it the way it is and closing it out. You know, if it's not what we'd like to see there, if it's just choked full of something that's not really here, I'd say it's time to replant. I mean, don't clear cut buffer zones. You know, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It's you know, it's an affront to our entire community. And it's not a oops thing anymore. It's 2019. People need to be responsible. People need to be responsible.
With all due respect, then
Please,
again,
go ahead.
At the time, there was no established wetland line, so no
Right.
buffer zone. So how would you tell people?
Well, why was this planning? Was it found to be within the buffer zone, or why did they have to submit it?
The commission assumed that was buffer zone.
All right. Well, there's probably a good reason for it. I'm not going to go back and say that they were wrong, but I don't know.
They should have
And
provided
wetlands
part
do
of the
switch and change. The applicant is more than willing to hire a professional person to delineate it and say it's outside of it.
That's already.
Again, it's upon them. The commission was acting in the town's best interest with the best knowledge that they had. I'm not going to fault them for that at all. And that's kind of where I stand. I'd like to, if possible, continue this. I really can't issue a certificate tonight to go out, take a look, see what's going on. And again, if it's naturalized, I'm more than happy to stay. Let's close it out.
It is a reasonable request.
Okay.
I didn't expect the hearing to be closed tonight.
Okay.
It's a
Oh,
reasonable
wait,
request.
are we setting some sort of a, I don't know whether to use the word precedent, but some sort of a reason? I mean, if people just say they're gonna do something and then they ignore it for 5 years.
So
you
that's
know,
why
and
we're
you-
doing the site
Yeah.
visit.
Yeah, okay, well, I think that's a good idea, so I guess that's the way to start.
Okay.
thinking about this.
I guess we don't really need to continue, right? It was just a discussion?
No,
Or would we
It's
deny
just
the
to
request
wrap.
and then have them reply, or just continue?
I would just continue.
All right. So if possible, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the discussion for the request for certificate of compliance for 1 Century Mill Road
Yes.
until our next meeting, February 19th at 7:15
Yep.
PM? Okay.
And I would like to make a request. Could you send me, either me or Scott, a copy of the correspondence with a DP regarding the jurisdiction of the project?
Of the what?
The emails or wherever.
It was over phone. It
Over
wasn't
phone? Oh.
via email. Otherwise I would.
Okay.
But he can call as well, or you can call and just
Yeah.
ask the general question of if a project is proposed and now there's a delineation, but in 2006, there was an established enforcement order and restoration necessary. What does one override the other? Asking it generally, and they will give you an answer.
There was an enforcement order?
To my understanding, there was, and it was because of the cutting, so that's what led to the notice of intent filing.
Correct. We'll do that. So,
Okay.
Does that make sense?
yes.
Okay, and then we'll work with Rebecca to try to set up a date to get out there and take a look. I know that it's
Right.
right on the corner there.
Thank you.
No, thank you. All right, we should probably, I think most people here to discuss Long Hill, or more people here for Keys Farm subdivision.
I think one.
I'm gonna say, all right, we don't have an order for these discussions, so if possible, discussion for 147 Long Hill Common Driveway subdivision, updates on the application area and slope.
So, as you know, in your packets, you have, Walter, if you want to come up and, that's fine.
Sure.
In your packets, we have a letter from their wetland scientist establishing, the updates for the wetland replication area, and in addition to that, the slope area and comments regarding potential impacts to the resource area. So I don't know if you just want to briefly skim through it, or?
I'm happy, yeah, more interested to get comments from the guys.
And I did go out today to look at the area, but it has a thin layer of snow. But it seemingly, from what I could tell, it hasn't changed since my last site visit.
So, this is my attorney, Scott Erickson.
How are you?
If you remember, when we walked the site, we wanted to save some large trees that were there. The wetlands replication area was staked out by Duchamp Dillis. Our excavating contractor, Dave Smith and Sons excavated the material to groundwater, approximately 1.5 feet below what was there. We trucked that material out. We brought in approximately 30 yards of compost material from Heimlich Nurseries. It has an organic content of 15 to 20%. Our wetland scientist said we needed at least 12% organic content in order to do the wetlands replication. We had a list of plants from Western Nurseries that we used, that we planted out there. So we did plant all the plants from Western Nurseries. Some of the plant species were slightly different than what was there, but it was what Western Nurseries had available. Right now, naturally, they're all in the dormant stage. There are a lot of ferns. Our wetland scientist, Maureen Healy, is in Mexico on vacation this week, so she couldn't make it. We can come back at another meeting if you like, but she suggests that we wait until springtime, see what plants come back, and if we have to do some replantings, we'll do some replantings. As far as the erosion control, we'll take a look at that and put that back up. We weren't aware that it was down, but we will. And as far as the glass that was in there, I know nothing about that. We trucked material out from the wetlands because we had to excavate a 1.5 feet. The only material we trucked in there was the compost material from Heimlich Nurseries, so.
We asked for a manifest associated with that fill, but they're closed for the winter. So as soon as we can get that, we can provide that to the commission.
That would be excellent. I would like to clarify just one point. When we were all out on site on that site visit, the silt fence was down and you were requested to repair it. So you were made aware of that. And you were there, which maybe it's a moot point, but you know, this is things that haven't been done that you've been requested to do. And I do appreciate the letter because we've been waiting for this for a long time, since September. So it's important that it was submitted and that the commission can view it, and the next steps for the commission are either we accept that, we wait until spring, we try and do a third-party review, and that would be at the cost of the applicant, if the commission wishes. If not, you know, we accept this and go forward. The other outstanding item is the slope. And now I understand when Maureen was out there, obviously the material had been pulled back at that point. And the commission did allow you to use the stump grindings for temporary stabilization of that slope. And the slope now has riprap on it. It was originally supposed to be a boulder slope per the plans.
There was a boulder slope on one side of the common septic system, and it showed, on the original plans, on the septic system design, it showed boulders to kind of act as a slight retaining wall, boulders on the slope. They were 1,000-pound boulders, and you know, if it's a 1,000-pound boulder is almost a cubic yard, a 3x2 boulder. And, you know, in my mind, trying to interlock 3x2 just boulders that are out there is gonna leave a lot of voids. And what we did when we worked this slope for the septic system areas, we used a 20-foot wide sheet of filter fabric, and we went along that whole slope with that filter fabric first. And then we put the riprap and the stump grindings there. And I was out there again today, and there were 2 areas today, after we did this work in September, that had some sedimentation that went down the slope.
Yep.
But they were from the top. They washed over, you could see the rivulets on the top where the grass wasn't quite established. And they washed over the top, and then they were running along the top of the filter fabric and coming down underneath the riprap. It wasn't the slope that was caving or compromised, it was erosion from sedimentation and everything from the material washing over the top of the system. So I think, I mean, we can take care of that easily, and I think once the grass is established in the springtime, that'll take care of that. I think our process of putting that filter fabric down and that riprap and those stump grindings is gonna be much, much better and take care of the problem.
So the one I did notice when I was out there, the work that was done to the slope with the stump grindings, the riprap and the fabric. When I was out there yesterday, the area where it had the largest, Jeff stood in it just for scale, the largest scouring along, I believe it's the most western, if you're standing at the toe of the slope looking, it's the left side of the slope. You can clearly see that that was not pulled back and regraded. My only concern with that, specific to the wetlands, is we don't want it seen going back into the adjacent upland resource area. And you can clearly see that now it's settled in, so you can see that those areas weren't filled.
I'm not sure what it is, but I'd be happy to meet you
I have
out there
pictures I can
sometime.
send
Maybe
it
I
to
could
you,
meet you out there and we
Yep.
could walk it and see what we have to do to address it.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, anytime, I'll go, pick a date.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of initial questions right now. Again, I appreciate what the letter states and everything that it's right that they established, but a lot too, I look to Rebecca to go out there and give me her opinion on what she's seeing. It seems like a lot of this is a wait till the spring thing. I could be wrong. I know, keeping the erosion controls in functioning and in good shape it's gotta be a daily, weekly thing. It's a problem now. There's a lot of problem on the sites to say, we didn't know it was down. I don't know if you have to drive by there daily or send somebody every other day or contact somebody in town to check or see if one of the neighbors will call, but if it fails again, it should be fixed right away. We really don't want to see the wetland fill and be cleared out again. It's easy to say, we filled in, all the wetland, but we dug out all the sediment and it's all better now. It's a lot better if we don't fill in the wetland and have to dig it out, so we really don't want to see that happen again. A lot of what I'm seeing and hearing, and again, I could be wrong, is we really got to kind of wait to the spring to see how everything is established. And again, if I'm wrong, please let me know.
We
That's-
also, we
Go ahead, please.
posted a $31,000 cash bond with the conservation for 2 years
Yeah.
to monitor the plant growth and everything, so if the plants do fail, the money is there, so it will, replace the vegetation and
Yeah, that's as expected. Any initial comments, questions, board members?
No.
Any comments, questions, and again, if you could please just state your name and address any comments or questions to the board itself.
Sure.
Please.
I'm Lauren Silly, 147 Long Hill. I guess I just want to kind of remind the board that the deadline was given in November. He's had plenty of time to do this work. He knew about these issues. The fall was a great time to do this. The summer, the year before would have been a great time to do this. So extending this into the spring, I understand obviously the work can't be done right now, but there comes to a point where you kind of can't expect a different result. Because even the work he's talking about that he did, the slope, I don't know the details, I don't have the letter he just gave, but talking to the residents of 155, they said grass was planted over there, but they had to go in themselves with the machine to replant the grass because it wasn't done properly. I mean, this is stuff that we've seen throughout this whole process. So when's the end? I think I can speak for all of us, if it were up to us, the bond would be pulled and someone else would be doing this work that's trustworthy. I mean, he sat here in September, I believe, and said it would be all done by October. We're still waiting on a lot of things. So I don't know how many times he can sit here and say that he's gonna get it done, because it just doesn't happen, and it doesn't get done correctly. And then more could be damaged and there'd be more to do. So that's our
One other
response.
item I want to back off of that actually is the expired order of conditions. You had requested it to be to be extended, and then you never followed up with the paperwork, the fees, et cetera, to do so. So that needs to be addressed as soon as possible as well, to continue work on site.
We don't own the property anymore.
So his name is on the application.
I understand that, but now there's no ownership of the property, so we don't have any right. To apply.
Walter would need to provide us with an affidavit with the new buyer's signature stating,
The owner's signature.
the new owner's signature,
property owner's
buyer's signature, stating there's been a transfer, it's no longer my responsibility, et cetera.
But we.
That's never
we would
been
not
seen.
apply.
So I need that documentation to support any transfer of responsibility, I guess you could say.
Well, I guess, more importantly, procedurally, how we close this out, because we're working under an existing order of conditions. You're citing to the order of conditions when you cite to these specific concerns.
Correct.
So it's not a new order of conditions.
No,
But now that we're not the property owner, we don't have the ability to apply.
yes, you do. So we haven't received, until we receive any documentation that transfers that ownership, we, as the commission, and myself as the agent,
Well,
period,
you wouldn't
we
receive
need that
that.
information.
The Registry of Deeds has all of that.
We, again, receive that information. I'm not searching who's the owner of
Oh, I
property.
can send you the deeds.
You need to send me documentation that shows it, and that should have been done upon when it got transferred. It's in the Wetlands Protection Act, it's stated, it might be stated in our bylaw as well, I'd have to look at the language, but,
So,
Okay, so it's not in the bylaw, but it's in the Wetlands Protection Act, and that information was not provided.
The transfer rates?
Yes.
So I think they're also giving mixed messages here. They're saying they're not owners, they don't have any responsibility, yet they're gonna keep doing it. So if they're done with this property, then forfeit the bond and move on. Why are we dragging this out? I mean, if you don't have responsibility for it, then be done with this.
I'm afraid that's a misrepresentation of what was said here tonight. We clearly represented the commission and we're gonna continue to do this work.
But yet you have
What
this.
we can't do is we can't file a new application for notice of intent saying that we're owners of the property.
No, we don't want that. That's not what an extended order of condition is. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking you to extend the order of condition so you can still work and complete this work that you've stated is done, that we're holding a bond for. So then you can get your money back at the end of the day once that's completed, or the town does the work.
Okay, we'll have Maureen, wetland scientist, fill out those applications and send it to you.
That would be fine. That would be great.
And if you could meet me out there in the next week or two, perhaps, we can take a walk and look at that side slope and see what we should do.
So you understand, you're extending the current order, it's not a new order?
That's clear. Now-
So, all right. So you do understand you still have ownership over this?
Well, the order's expired. Technically speaking.
Correct.
The order is supposed to be extended at least 30 days prior to the.
Right, well, I mean, you don't have to ask to be extended, but I'm
Right.
assuming that now you're saying you will ask and
Well,
we're
that's-
fine with the ownership.
The goal is to cooperate with the commission.
No, it's perfectly fine, but it seemed like you were arguing that you didn't own it, but now,
Well, we
in
don't
which
own,
case.
well, we don't own it. That's a
All right,
fact.
but you are gonna extend your current order of conditions on the project.
Correct.
that you-
And it's going to take 2 years under your regulations in the Wetlands Protection Act to make sure that the plant and vegetation establishes itself as a wetlands replication area, right?
Which is fine, because the orders have to extend for at least 3, but not more than 5 years.
So, well, unfortunately, it's gonna take another year or two so we can see how.
Well, yes, the plantings, once they're done, if, we go through the growing periods, if they're not in compliance, you bring them into compliance, and we go back and forth until they're in compliance, and then you wait the growing period that's necessary. So it's not, we're waiting 2 years for the plantings to be done and the work to be completed. It's, the work's completed, and then we wait to be sure that it's successful and the plants are surviving and vital.
Okay.
So can I just ask the board, like, what was the point of a November deadline if no one's sticking to it and there aren't fines continuing to be given? I just don't understand, like, what the process of this is then.
So,
Yeah.
the short of it is, the fining has stopped because of, there has been, an appeal for the fines. So that appeal establishes that there's attention on the matter and there's no fines necessary as we've received documentation now. So the possibility of pulling the bond is still on the table, but he needs to work to come into compliance. So we're not issuing new fines because it's still the same violations. And those fines have already been issued.
So is the board gonna issue a new deadline? I mean, I don't understand like how this will end. Like,
So we
is there a
have
deadline
the-
of May 1st now that they have to meet it by, or?
What I had stated at the last meeting was that it's similar timeline to the planning board's timeline.
Right, and
So-
they keep extending it, so I don't.
Well, no, it's dependent upon town meeting. So something needs to be accepted at town meeting so that we are able to potentially pull a bond. And then we are able to act on that. Until that's done, we cannot do that.
Yeah, I understood that, but at our last planning board meeting, they were given an extension of June 1st to finish that work. So now I don't, like, that's past the planning board, so, or past the town meeting, so like, I just.
Well, because it won't happen the day of the town meeting.
Right, but like, so that if the process of pulling the bond had to happen based on something at town meeting, but then the planning board kind of backtracked on that and said Walter has until June 1st to complete the work, it wasn't that they were gonna pull the bond, it was they
Okay.
gave him another extension. So
Okay.
I'm kind of wondering if this is lining up with that, or what the,
Nope, so when he requests the extension of the order of conditions, that will establish the extent of the deadline for pulling the bond. But again, he has to come into compliance regardless.
Okay, so,
Otherwise, he faces pulling the bond.
so the bond could still be pulled after this town meeting?
Yes.
That has to happen, and then, so
Yes.
at a meeting in May or June or whatever, the
In May.
board could still, I mean, the commission, the conservation commission meeting, the board could still say the work hasn't been done to satisfaction up to this point, we're pulling the bond?
Yes, and we can, so, again, and I don't have the language in front of me, but there is something that the town has to accept, to be general about it, at
Yeah.
annual town meeting. And until we accept that, we cannot act on the
Right, no, I
bond.
got it.
So yes, it will be
Okay,
at least May, if not after, until,
okay, I
if
got
that's
that.
the case, that's when. it
Okay, it
happens.
just, the planning board meeting kinda all turned things around for
Yeah.
them, from their point of view, so I didn't know if that's how this was going to, but it sounds like it's a little different.
No.
Okay.
I mean, if he suddenly comes into compliance prior to then
Then
great,
great,
awesome.
okay.
But if not, then that would be the route
Okay.
we would be pursuing.
Great, thank you.
Just that, and like, I want to apologize to you and everybody here, to the extent that, please understand that, nobody on the board that I know here is a lawyer. We're not civil engineers, I mean, we're volunteers, so a lot of this, this doesn't happen that often. We're trying to figure out what our options are, what this means, what that means. Obviously, they bring legal representation, we have to be careful what we say. We're just regular citizens. I don't always have the answers that I want to be able to give you. But we are really trying to stay on top of it. I mean, I hope you understand Rebecca has been
Yes.
fantastic.
No, absolutely.
If there are questions, I will try to get those answers for you. But please understand, the board's not just blowing it off or pushing it down. I
No,
mean, we are
understand.
concerned, we do want to see this get resolved. At the end of the day, we just want to make sure the wetlands are taken care of and
Right.
protected, and hopefully, if they can get them to that point, great. If somebody else has to get them to that point, fine, but we just want to get it fixed, and for the people that live there too.
Right, no, we really appreciate all the work you've done, I just,
Yeah.
at the planning board meeting, it felt like because they've lawyered up now, we've consulted lawyers, but we haven't brought them to meetings, that they're kind of backtracking, so I just wanted to get it out there that you're
Completely
still
appreciate
on
it.
the
Completely
same
appreciate
path that you were before, because it seemed like things changed on the planning board side.
Okay. As far as I know, we really
You're still
haven't.
on the
Yeah,
same page,
yeah.
great, then thank you.
Other questions, please, sir?
Yeah, there was another issue on the December report.
I didn't catch the name.
Kevin Solem, 151 Long Hill Road. It mentions the areas along the common drive where erosion is occurring and migration of material into the drainage basins. So is that something that's going to be repaired as well?
That is more the planning board's review, but regarding, it is in my letter, because it is potentially flowing into those stormwater systems or stormwater infrastructure. So long as the planning board is assured that those systems are working properly, that shouldn't be an issue. But that was just noted that while I was there, that was existing as well.
Okay.
Other questions, comments?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. So, where does it leave us now? Go ahead.
This was just an update on the letter
Yep.
and where things stand, basically, and bringing Walter in to understand, and his representative, to understand what the commission basically expects of Walter in coming into compliance.
Okay.
So I guess, just for clarity's sake then, so we have your memorandum of December 13th. The January 17th letter from Norse addresses, I think, the major points in that. I know that the commission's reviewing that now, but will we receive an update on what remains open at this point in time?
Sure, and so I can do I did another site visit yesterday, and I can send you that as well.
Yeah.
But also, that's what I was saying in the beginning of this, is it may be beneficial to the commission to have a third-party review, specifically of the replication area, if not as well as the slope.
I do, just again, because we want to understand precisely what the commission's expectations are. These references here, that you have numerical references, I think that are supposed to be to the order of conditions, is that correct?
Yes,
They don't match.
so it's the special conditions
No, I
and the order
understand,
conditions.
but if you look at, for example, this is for clarification because I just want to know what's going on, right? So we have these references here, it says fill debris, stockpiles, excavated materials, number 42, 43, 44. But if I look at the order of conditions, 42, 43, and 44, under the heading subsequent owners and other successors in interest, and deal with, you know, the folks that are sitting back there and their obligations as now property owners. So I just want to make sure that the references line up with the order so that we can make sure we hit the targets here.
So these here, this was highlighted by my predecessor.
This is not the recorded order.
And then I have this, which is showing,
Do you have the recorded order?
Is this, you did get this?
yeah, I believe that's this
Not
right
me,
here, actually.
I was here when this was getting approved, Rich. I remember this.
Is this the similar copy that you have?
So
Yes,
here's the,
copy.
this is the one I have, yeah. So
Okay.
the
So
numbers
this
I
one-
have just line up with the replication area.
Yes, I can correct that. This
Yeah.
is
Yeah, I just want to make sure
the
we're on the
bylaw
same
order
page.
of conditions, which should have been recorded. Again, this was prior to my time,
Right.
so I would assume it was recorded as well, but
So I'm only going off the recorded order. So,
Yep.
you know, it's not, it's just making sure that we're on the same page in terms of what the
They used
extra-
to record 2 words.
yes, that's what
They
I'm,
used to record 2.
yeah. So there should be, I would encourage you to look, I'll look as well on the registry of deeds to establish that the bylaw was recorded as well.
Mhm.
As the individual in the back of the room just mentioned, prior to my time, my predecessor working here, they did record 2
Right.
separately.
Right.
And now we've made it a practice, because now it establishes the bylaw in the Wetlands Protection Act form,
Right.
that we file it together.
And I'm, like I said, I'm not challenging sort of the substance, but it's
Yep.
just making sure that we're consistent.
Sure.
And I'll contact you so that we can set up a time, take a look at that side slope and see what should be addressed.
That would be great.
And on that, I mean, you know, the order doesn't call for a retaining wall, so I guess we are looking for the commission's feedback on the current situation there, you know, with the riprap as the permanent solution. Obviously, to the extent that there's still erosion, that would be something we have to address. These are photos, you know, it's not a great shot, but there you go, you can see.
The commission so on the plans, original plans, it references the original plans in the order of conditions.
Right.
So we would want the original plans done.
So you want to put 1,000-pound boulders there?
That, if that's what it's asking for, unless when you come and request an extension, that there is a field amendment that the commission will approve,
Because at
that's
this
different.
At this point, I think that would be more destructive, trucking in 1,000-pound machine, you'd have to machine, large machine, 1,000-pound boulders in.
But I think it's the long-term disturbance that is the concern here.
But I guess that's a question for the commission. I mean, is that appropriate now?
Well, I don't want to bring up the thing, but if it was part of what you said you were going to do in the beginning,
But if,
then
Right.
why is it not, why was it not done? Why was it changed without?
So we
Well,
invited,
I'm trying, I don't want to get
Yeah.
involved.
I will state, we invited, and I'm very happy, both of you and Walter, specifically showed up at this meeting. We did send an update before our last meeting, and we discussed, and we just stated, yes, that's what is expected, is what was requested on the plans. So you're sort of reiterating a question that's already been asked.
well, I didn't ask it before.
Right, no, and I understand that, and I respect that.
So I guess, but that's, we want to know, because I think it's important. If we file for the extension with a slight modification for, you know, the new slope stabilization, if that's something the commission would entertain.
And from my perspective, the retaining wall is shown on the septic system plan that wasn't filed with the Conservation Commission. The plan that the Conservation Commission had was the common driveway plan, and that retaining wall, that boulder slope is outside the buffer zone. I mean, it's greater than 100 feet away.
So what it's done, so we wouldn't even be addressing this slope, and you know you were there when it happened, or after the fact when we were there on that first site visit. We wouldn't even be talking about this slope if it didn't literally drag down 100 and so feet into the adjacent upland
And
resource
I agree with you
area.
100%.
Right, so what we're trying to do, and if the plans that have been proposed had been completed, regardless of if you follow the Board of Health, which the commission doesn't have, so I'm not reviewing that, I'm not going to other departments. It's referenced in our order of conditions, the plan that the commission approved. If there was a field amendment, again, it should have come back and been before the commission, and that changed during a public meeting. Because that didn't happen, all we have is the boulder slope, and we look at those plans after seeing what happened and say, this isn't in place, and yes, there's temporary controls there now, which is great, and again, thank you. But it's still not compliant with the plans, nor any field amendments that we are lacking in terms of documentation. So that's, I think, the important point is you're right, it is outside the resource area, but it affected a resource area under the bylaw in the Wetlands Protection Act, so that's why we're talking about it.
All right, so we'll meet and we'll address some of these issues.
Yep.
And I think if we go with riprap, we need an engineered drawing.
Yes.
Right, we need an engineer saying that that's sufficient retaining, right?
Third party. Third party.
I'm just saying, it can't be like a hands, it needs to be like a stamped drawing from an engineer, I guess, right? So, if it's amendment to the drawings.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you very much for
Thank you.
coming in.
Thank you.
So, and just, we'll get a follow-up letter from you on.
From the site visit, yes.
And also in response to the Norse letter, or, because I guess that's what we're looking for, is feedback on.
Yeah, so I will note that in just my site visit notes that I basically give to the commission after I go out on site and just check off, you know, what the response was and then what I had seen out there. And then we can go from
Very good. Thank you all.
there. Thank you.
Today.
All right. You, good?
Yes.
All right. Next up, we have a discussion on the Keys Farm subdivision, an update on mitigation restoration plan.
So I guess we're providing an update. I'm sure Rebecca's been in touch with you regarding an erosion issue at Keys Farm. What I can just quickly go over kind of what happened,
Please, yeah.
how we got involved, and kind of where we need to go from here. Back on the 24th of January, we had that's kind of not a perfect storm, but kind of a tough scenario for a site that's under construction. The site is obviously, there's frost in the ground, it's entirely frozen, so it's as if the whole site's impervious. We've got 1.5 inches of rain, and obviously we had some snow melt tied into that. And the way the site is now, where it's under construction, obviously the proposed road that comes in off the Hudson, all the drainage is in, but in its current state of construction, obviously none of the stormwater is actually getting into the system. It's all kind of running down the side of the road. It's all heading down to that first stormwater basin. So during this event, there was a lot of water that ended up down that basin. We obviously knew that beforehand, which is why we dug a temporary basin there. And what's happened is just the fact that it is winter, we don't have any vegetation or anything. So over time, that's been maintained, but it's been getting silted up to the point where it overtopped the temporary berm that was constructed here. And believe it or not, the silt fence didn't even blow through. It actually, undermining it. Which,
So, under the fence instead of over it.
which we've actually seen before, actually this summer, in a couple instances when you have these real significant, there's a couple storms this summer, actually, another site in Stowe. It did the same thing, it basically went under, kind of bubbled up and everything carried through. I know Rebecca, obviously Bob Pace, the owner.
I think everybody knows.
Bill Reinowitz is here on behalf of the contractor. Right after or during the storm, I believe it came to Rebecca's attention. She called either Bob or Rhino, and they immediately kind of went out there. But obviously during the event, there's really not a whole lot that they could do.
They did place some riprap immediately. I know Jamie did that one.
Yeah, he put some stone, try to kind of fill the hole and provide some additional filtering. After which we got involved and we issued this I guess letter, which I assume you guys have.
Yep.
We went out the following Monday just to kind of assess the situation.
Somewhere.
This is obviously the detention pond here. This is Hudson Road. This figure kind of just shows, this is where the breach happened. It went under the silt fence. Everything, it's almost a little low area along, comes down from the embankment of the road. It kind of ran all along this embankment. And then there's a couple stormwater pipes that kind of collect here what goes under Hudson Road.
Where's the house?
The existing house is right
So
here.
here.
Yeah. Obviously Rebecca had some good pictures of during the storm event.
Yeah.
It really looked like a muddy river.
Yes, it did.
You can see, yeah, exactly where it fills
Given-
into and everything.
Given the fact that it's, glacial till, there's obviously Bill can certainly tell you, there's a lot of fines in that material. And due to the volume of water, a lot of those fines were suspended,
A lot of what?
the fines, so really, it's almost like silt
Yeah,
clay.
okay.
And that obviously made the water turbid, you could see it running all the way through. Given the nature of that, a lot of that turbidity, silt,
That's settled.
Yeah.
is the acid bed, it's gone, So by the time we got out there, where the heavier deposits ended up was kind of in this area here. It's about 3,600 square feet. Seth provided from our office just some pictures. This is kind of good. This is just on the other side. You can kind of just see it just looks like muck, that's kind of in that area. The further you got towards here, there was less and less of it, and really as you kind of got down here, it was kind of just a little bit on the sides. And then obviously provided some pictures of this channel here, as well as the other channel. And looking at that, the following Monday, there really wasn't any deposits or anything.
Within the channel, no.
Within the channel, correct, yep. As we looked on the other side, a lot of this is, you got Danforth Brook here, and it's a flooded swamp, and you could see this picture here, it just shows, it was all covered in ice at this point, obviously, but you kind of just see like a silt pocket under the ice. We thought it was just this one small pocket. He said, it looks like most of it carried through. We kind of explored a little bit further. This is obviously across the street. Also important to point out, it's off our property. But as you kind of came further down the road here, where it probably was a bit of an eddy, or where the current slowed down, and there's some additional deposits that look very similar to that.
And then it was also in the grasses
Yeah, so
prior to.
it's all in this bog, swamp. It's all tall grasses.
water flow on the other side of the road?
Towards
Everything
Hudson.
goes-
It goes that way, so
Towards
it's
Hudson.
more like that.
Yeah. So the grass has actually filtered out a lot of it. It looked clean, but I guess we kind of just pressed down on that, you can see the olive color silts, it's not the black muck that you typically see here. We also attached, a plan here, just a standard plan of basically recommended remediation actions, which is really, it's handwork. And getting in there, shovels, rake, buckets, just scraping it up, removing as much as you can without disturbing the soil below. And I know since then, well, obviously, part of the enforcement order was a cease and desist, which we want to talk about later as well, but it allowed the work to continue at the site that basically is to help mitigate and remediate. So the biggest course of action that we had was obviously to build the basin, and that's kind of been priority one. There's 3 basins in the subdivision, and obviously we want all 3 to be constructed as soon as possible. This obviously, given, like I said in the beginning, the fact that right now, just the state of the site, a lot of it's ending up down here, this was the priority. Bill and his guys are working hard to get that basin constructed. I'd say they're about 90% done. They've got the berm all the way in. Today they're working on the southwest structure here. Bill can certainly talk about that, but by his estimation, he's hoping by the end of the day tomorrow that they'll have that basin pretty much fully constructed, backbladed, graded out. Obviously we're not gonna have vegetation or anything.
And this storm, I don't mean to interrupt,
Yeah.
but the stormwater infrastructure that I'm happy is being constructed, that is going to function under pre-construction conditions, or
Yeah.
with the open site anyway?
Yes,
Okay.
so and Bill and I were talking about some recommendations. How this works is basically everything comes down, there's a 4-bay here, which is basically designed to kind of take out the silt. And then it acts as a weir, but it's like stone riprap that obviously carries through, and then it goes into the basin where it's supposed to in part recharge, but also just detain the water. And then there's an outlet control structure, which is set, it's got different openings for different storms, but essentially, it's designed to release that water at a certain rate. So during construction, our concern is obviously that, the site's gonna be under construction, until we get vegetation, and until every swales and slopes and everything are done. We're gonna get a lot of sediment down here during those storm events. So we're recommending that we don't actually even create, or we don't bring in this riprap or anything now. Basically, we'll just build, again, like a temporary berm, just because they're gonna have to, part of the SWIP, they're monitoring this, they're gonna have to keep, if we get a significant rain, they're gonna come down here, they're gonna have to clean this out, muck it out, and keep going. But obviously, with the way the outlet control structure will be set up, it'll at least allow the pond to not only retain that water, but it's gonna suspend it so you're pulling off the top to try to prevent any of that siltation from going through.
And can you just talk about what was there prior to this event? Because from my understanding, there was a temporary
For
structure
the
there.
temporary, it essentially was, what we're talking about here is, it was a sump, or, it was a big pit and just a berm, which was just earth, so when this is constructed per the plan, it's actually got an impermeable core, it's got a clay core to it, because what happens, obviously, with just an earthen berm is you get a significant amount of water like that, and it's just, it's carrying through. And what compounded it, honestly, too, is we were in a freeze-thaw, so the temporary would fill up and then would freeze, so it's as if there was no storage there. So then you get that additional stuff, it didn't even really function, it just, everything kind of flew through it. So that's what was there, and then also, there's gonna be a head wall, there's gonna be riprap here, so, if there was migration of some material through here, it's obviously gonna pass through riprap, and then it's gonna hit the silt fence, so, it should provide the protection.
Is there anything, and I appreciate, and I can't say it enough, I do appreciate the work and attention that's been paid to this, because it is a significant issue, and a significant violation. I do either want to hear from Brandon or you, maybe Bill, about the silt fence. So understandably, this is gonna function and there's not gonna be a problem. I understand that. Is there any suggestions, because I didn't see it, it was probably the only thing that wasn't addressed in the letter, this is the undermining of the silt fence. I know that had to do with some of the freezing, and I'm sure some rocky material that's under there as well. But this had happened previously, and we said, okay, it's gonna be cleaned up because it was only about a foot past. And so I'm sure that added to the amount of material that ended up pushing through. It was repaired right away when it was brought to their attention. But since we know that now this has happened twice, the second time more significant because of the amount of water coming through, has there been any notes taken, or can we do something else along at erosion control that would remediate that from undermining, or is it just
Well, I think-
hopeless to have, like,
Yeah.
there has to be something, whether it's another form of erosion control. I know we have hay bales and silt fence out there and it still went under, or wattles and silt fence, it still went under. I think, the site manager put out some riprap within the area between the double silt fence, which was great, or some, like larger material there to try and keep the water clean that was making it through or going under. But is that working? Do we have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I guess to kind of say, we're using best management practices.
Yeah.
And we're not doing the same one with the same result. So, yeah, I mean, so,
Right, okay.
obviously, when it first happened, it was just straw wall, because that's what it was
Right.
called for. And, during that storm event where it failed, the straw walls just blew open,
Yeah.
you know, and everything went through. So that's when everything was reinforced, and the temporary basin was constructed to
Yeah.
basically help try to control the amount. But also, what the temporary basin, by building that berm, is you're trying to spread out when that, instead of it just finding like one point where all that water's coming through, the berm should basically spread that out, so you're releasing it and you're hitting a wider spread of that erosion
Okay.
control. That was working. What happened in this event, though, is it actually blew the berm out, and
Yeah.
then the silt fence, because it was reinforced multiple times, and, you know, it did hold up, but
Yeah.
what happens in this, like I've said, you know, I've seen it happen before,
Right.
you know, in a situation like that, I mean, honestly, I don't know of a single product on the market that would prevent this.
Right, which,
You know,
if
so-
that's the case,
so
that's the
really,
case, but
In hindsight,
Is it just the volume of the retention pools that you
probably the
need?
concentration is all.
Yeah, and the speed and everything else like that.
yeah. So,
So long as though that is in the, as we're, you know, I do realize this is gonna lessen any blow if there's a large storm, and hopefully there's nothing that overcomes the berm, but I just wanna make sure that that's noted and that everyone's aware that that's an area that's obviously sensitive to being
yeah,
blown out.
How,
So, I
how
mean,
long
we-
is it gonna take to build the berm and the, final pond?
Tomorrow afternoon.
it's gonna be better. I mean, they're
Okay.
By the end of the
90%
day
done now. So since this, I mean, that was the one thing, and, you know, look at what we do, and, you know, we look at it with hindsight and say, well, you know, if the basin was there, I'm not gonna say it would have worked, but, you know, obviously it would have significantly helped, and that's why we're saying it's the best thing we can do now.
Can I backtrack a little
Sure.
bit, Brandon?
Yeah.
To, since we're talking about stormwater infrastructure, to that upper area, here, which was affected as well, and you had some sediment overcome the silt fence here. And I know they were out there installing this. Would the installation of that remediate anything that occurs down here, or did you not?
It's essentially gonna do the same, and
Okay.
that's why all the ponds need to be installed.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it'll help detain that water, and it's gonna control that release of the runoff.
Okay.
So that's what we're after, because when the basins aren't there, it's uncontrolled. So if you get an inch and a half of rain in 2 hours, it's all going through, and it's gonna hit that one point, that one low point, you know? So obviously, we're gonna be controlling the volume, we're gonna be controlling the rate now, and, you know, obviously, we're gonna have riprap, which is gonna help, again, knock velocities down. If you've got suspended salt, it's gonna filter that out. Then we're gonna have the silt fence. You know, I mean, if we wanted to go even, I mean, crazier, I mean, like kind of in this area here, which is in here, you know, we could put some straw wattles, you know, so, I mean,
I mean, I would
we
rather,
don't want it to.
I'd rather not,
Yeah.
but,
It's
yeah.
up to you. All I'm saying is, and what I was gonna say is, you know, you don't want it to breach,
yeah.
you know, but at least if it did,
Mhm.
you know, this is priority one, so to say, or, you know, you also gotta think about, we got Danforth Brook, perennial stream, habitat, so, you know, what is it gonna do to put straw wattles down? We're not keying those in. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really, you're laying a wattle down on the ground, you're banging a stake in. So I really don't see that being a detriment, and it's
Okay.
only gonna provide a benefit, so, a potential benefit, again.
Okay,
Not
so,
that something happened, but now we're way beyond layers
Catch
of
basins
protection.
aren't in, are catch basins in?
They're all in,
But are they functioning?
no,
So it's the whole site sheet flowing into this
Yeah.
one basin?
yeah.
yes.
So is there enough volume in that one basin though for the whole site?
How much rain do you think
Overburdened
fell?
twice.
Yeah, the rain events.
Yeah, so the basin hasn't been in for any
We've had so much precipitation, I know.
But to answer your question is no, that basin is not sized to handle the entire subdivision. Yeah.
Because
That's
you
why
will
you have
have
two.
another big rain this spring.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But not only volume, I'm just thinking about the
Yeah.
speed of the water. Like
Yeah.
if it's just sheet flowing off the whole site into
Niagara
that
Falls.
one point.
So as we look at that,
The flow.
this happens in construction all the time. It's
Yeah.
just like, whoa. But, you know, the other thing we can do is, I mean, we can try to, and Bill might know some areas where we can put some other settled basins in other places, you know, so
Temporary.
further up, yeah, they're all gonna be
Just to slow it
temporary.
down a little bit.
I would
Yeah.
strongly suggest that. Just because of, like Bill mentioned, we had a wet fall, we have a wet spring coming, I'm sure.
And it'll dry up.
Something, and I mentioned it,
Yeah.
I think to Fred Hamway as well, to look at, are there any places up gradient from the resource areas or throughout the site that can remediate that? So not speaking for the commission, but I would strongly
I
suggest the
think something
commission
to
to
slow
request that.
down. I mean, if
Yeah.
everything's sheet flowing to one point and the flow is gonna be really high velocity as it gets down there, breaking it up, slowing it down. I don't know if we upgrade to hay bales in some areas from the wattles
It's already
too.
been done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we've gone
Okay.
through, because there's a couple, this is the only area, like, this fall we were up there, there's a couple other points
Mhm.
where these basins are, and we basically reinforced those, we used hay bales, kind of put them up on the side. And obviously, they're maintaining those, because you can put all that in, but if they're not maintaining the stuff in
Right.
front of it, you know, you're not gonna have that protection.
So this may not, you know, I have enough confidence that you know what you're doing about controlling this stuff now that you've figured out what went wrong
Yeah.
to fix it.
Yeah.
But my question really is, you know, all the silt that went down and ended up in the brook, how long is it gonna take for that brook to clean itself out? I mean, you said it ended up in the Assabet. So,
Yeah.
I mean, is it clean now, or is it gonna
Yeah,
take
so
6
we-
months to get through there? Is that our issue too?
It's not our issue to solve it's our issue to have the site solve the problem that they
Right.
created. It's our issue to enforce and protect that resource, which is why we are where we are right now.
I understand that.
So-
Regarding specifics about the brook, I will be out there with Seth, or are you coming out or Seth?
Seth, okay, yeah.
So Seth from Juice Armadillos,
Right.
myself, and two individuals who specialize in cold water fisheries will be out there assessing Danforth Brook
Okay, that was my.
for any potential impacts
Okay.
to.
So I was more worried about that.
Yep,
I know that he's gonna fix this,
yes.
I have no doubt in my mind, but I was just
Well, they're
wondering about
they're gonna
that.
have to fix the other
So-
thing too, if.
Well, I was just wondering about
comes
that,
back.
because that to me is
Yep.
more long-term issue that this
Right.
Yeah.
address, I don't know.
So I don't know if it's gonna make you feel any better, but,
Huh?
I don't know if it's gonna make you feel any better, but you know, what happens in those, I mean, it's honestly, it's like delusion's the solution, so I mean, it looks, further down the river,
The
you're
clear.
losing it over such a large
I know,
area.
I know, and
you
that's-
know,
that's-
so, I mean,
that's
there's
right. I
no
know
way
that's-
you're gonna be able to go find an area 2 miles away where there's all.
No, that wasn't
yeah,
the question. I know that the brook will clean itself, I was just sort of wondering how long it was gonna, you have any idea how much dirt ended up in that brook?
I do not.
Anyway, it was off topic.
Yeah.
It's my-
Not really.
No, that's why.
It's an issue, you know, but
Yeah.
let's hope it doesn't rain again in a couple of weeks.
Let's hope it doesn't rain the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Well,
That's
We need
not
to, we
gonna
can't
happen.
do it.
So the only thing I'll point out too is obviously since then, I mean, not only have they been constructing the basin, but a couple of Bill's guys did get in and they spent about 5 hours cleaning this up. The problem is it's frozen, which
When was
is
this done, the cleanup
a
done?
problem. What was that done?
They cleaned it all up when it was frozen, like they just took, they probably took that much dirt out to the grass. And then there's ice on this, but they shoveled it all out into buckets, into, what?
When was this, do you know?
It was when I was gone, I wasn't around.
Was
Yeah.
it closer, was it like right after the event? I'm
Yeah,
just, because
well-
I haven't received an update that work's been done yet. And so that,
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
You could look
questioning
at it,
any-
you could
Yeah,
look
I think
at
what it
it.
is, and you still not gonna be able to clean anything up, but like, I went out there today, and one of those guys, just, I mean, I think they were there, and it was frozen, and
Oh,
I was
they're
just
just
gonna
like
say,
cleaning it while
it
they were
kind
there
of,
type of thing.
was one of those things where.
They took out the frozen pieces.
It doesn't help you,
Yeah.
but it helps you where, you know, they were able to pick up these frozen pieces, so they
Right.
just started cleaning some of it up.
Okay.
So as you get out there, obviously it looks better than this, but obviously
Right.
the cleanup still needs to happen.
Well, and that's why I was
And
asking,
that's-
because by the time I got this letter, nothing had
No,
been done.
no, my guess is that was probably late last week, I mean, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
Monday. But at
And
any
if it
rate,
isn't, if the, you know, I would send more guys in there, but it's frozen right now. You know, even though, you know, and they'd go in and clean it all up, you know. And we really don't want a problem with it, so we will clean it all, you know.
Well, we've had a couple warm days, and so long, I've seen a couple areas in town that,
Very cool front.
We are
There's-
far away.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's only meant
enough,
to-
it's
yeah.
melted, there's no snow cover where you can go in there and do that. But what I would like to stress, and I do appreciate that they've been in there manually removing some of it, because that's what we want. We want to keep this rolling and bring it back into compliance. I would like to stress, you've proposed the removal to be this way with these preventative measures. That needs to be done.
right, this is a
So-
conversation, and where I was gonna just kind of continue on with that. You know, when I met with Bill today, the goal is obviously that, you know, just seeing if we can get a couple guys to go out and actually execute this plan. We're trying to get them out there tomorrow, but it just sounds like that may not be in the cards. So we're trying to jump on this weather as well.
Yep.
But I mean, obviously, weather permitting in the next week, you know, I will meet them out there first thing and kind of just, we call it doing train, but just kind of just show them what it is we're trying to do.
Okay.
Clean it up and go through that.
The other, so it was the section of silt fence and the last item that was left out, and I did mention it to Seth, maybe to you as well, was the seating that was proposed. So there was proposed seating in the wetland on the Keys Farm side of Danforth Brook, and then the same seating proposed on the Danforth Brook side of, excuse me, of Hudson Road, not Danforth Brook. And I just, again, forgive me because I forget if it was you or Seth I had spoken to about it. I said the commission may want to weigh it in once we hear back from Mass Fish and Game, if they have any suggestions for along the veins and things like that. Because it looks to me like two different vegetative communities there. So I don't think it's suitable to plant the same in both areas, but that will just require a little bit looking into, and it seems like if there is any planting needed on the Danforth Brook side of Hudson Road, that's going to be sort of secondary anyways, because we want to get the source cleaned up and
Yeah.
then continue that way.
Yeah, I think he had a spec of a wet mix in there, which is a
Yeah.
broad band, there's multiple species in there, but as I look, and this is just me, you know, I don't even pull this together, this was all done expeditiously, but
Yeah.
if you get on this side here, I mean, it's pretty much aquatic vegetation.
Yeah.
I'm curious to even see, in every other cleanup I've been involved with, you know, the call is typically made when you start getting underwater, it's not worth touching.
Right.
You know, what's gonna happen is it's eventually gonna get covered over,
Yeah.
vegetation's gonna come through, you're gonna cause more harm, you know, the more you get in there, you get people in there, you know, it's just gonna create more
Yeah.
mess. But-
So it
but we're
sounded
gonna,
like-
you know, see what they say.
Yeah, it sounded like they were more hopeful if it stays frozen, that you could, almost similar to what it sounds like you were doing in the wetland,
we did,
is
yeah.
taking the frozen pieces that have captured that
Yeah.
deposit and take it out like
Yeah.
that way, but yes, I'm
So I really don't
interested
see
to tomorrow
replanting
to
it,
see.
honestly, I don't see seeding.
Well, I was talking about the grasses,
Yeah.
if they want, or if they suggest anything regarding the grasses and you have to pull some up. I don't think they're gonna suggest that, but if they do, and seeding is necessary, I don't really believe it's gonna be the same as the opposite side, but again, that's down the line.
So it's all went out of the street. and into that swampy area across.
Yeah.
To the river.
Is anybody here to comment on this?
No, that's not like.
I was like, I know, I see her.
Okay, she'll comment.
Oh, yeah,
On any bill.
But-
If you want to,
But
any
not-
comments on what?
but
Yeah.
not here, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, no, I mean, it seems like we're getting a plan, but I mean, it seems like we have, and again, it sounded like Rebecca's been trying to keep us updated. It sounds like you guys have been really responsive, which I appreciate, and everybody's getting on it.
Just an FYI.
Go ahead.
Okay, Rebecca called us, well, okay, first of all, thank you. She gave us a courtesy call, not just a.
Before
bang.
I went out
No.
and saw it.
Yeah.
No, right, she called me, she sent me an email right after she called me, which I appreciate you calling me first, okay? So you're not just getting between the eyes, and then if I don't respond because I don't read my email, okay, then we have a problem. Within 30 minutes, okay, with a little bit of credit here, okay, to contractor, they're out there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were, nobody wants this stuff to happen, but we were super responsive, and I think that you'd agree with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, there's definitely someone, so how I became aware of it, not to run through it, was the DPW came in, notified me that there's an issue, or rather some coloration in Danforth Brook. So that's when I had called you, I hadn't even been out there yet.
Yeah.
And just said, he strongly believed and could see it was from your site. So I called and said, fix the erosion control. Went out, saw the extent of the violation, and email, that's when I sent the email, so it was probably a little bit of time, but yeah, and
Yeah,
then
it
once you
wasn't much at
received the
all.
email, I received a call from the site manager, and he was out there already, like I said, putting out the material to try and at least get the water flowing clean, into and through the resource areas versus the turbid water.
But yeah, I mean, you should know that too, that Rebecca did let us know that you guys
Yeah,
were
no,
responsive, like, she'll give credit where it's due, and, so, I mean, I think you guys have a good plan in place, a lot of people go by what Rebecca thinks upon that too. It did sound like from this discussion that we would benefit from, putting in some additional,
Models.
some additional waters, but some, temporary basins upgrading if possible, on the site. I'm trying to think if there's any other.
Same way, but we're basically putting check dams. essentially.
Right, I saw that, the water, which is.
Even as it narrows down, see, because it gets pretty narrow as it comes down the road here, even if we can't get a basin, once this basin's built, it's actually gonna alleviate most of that, because now all of a sudden, it's gonna start shifting, so, within a matter of a few weeks, it's gonna split that flow off, but if anything does get through and comes down the road here, we can put some check dams in there as well.
And I don't want to speak for Bill, but the game plan is to finish this basement tomorrow. Is that correct, Bill?
Yeah, we'll have that one, the front one will be all done, the weirs there. The other one's working, the weir and the other one, the second basin. And the water comes out nice and clear because it'll all settle in the basin and it goes through the pipe and it's just coming down, so it's all nice clear water. And the same will happen with the front one, it'll go through the small weir and it'll all be clear water. We'll be done with that one tomorrow and they'll be all graded up.
And all that clay for, let's call it Date Basin 2 is on site. It's basically going to be shaped and shot and whatever. So there's less than a week's worth of work there.
Yeah, well, then, we want to finish up those two, and then what we'll do is, it's gonna freeze again next week, and then we'll go and do that last one.
Which is way up the top.
I don't wanna bring trucks in there with material clay right now, because it'll just track the road, I don't care how much stone I put down. But next week it'll be frozen again, and we'll finish the back basin, and we'll be done with all of them. That's gonna take a couple of weeks, but, we'll have it done. And that way, everything will be under control, so all the water that comes down is gonna go through the weirs, and it's gonna be clear, because, it'll have to settle in. And like he says, if we have to go dig these out later on, because it gets silted up, we'll do that.
For the temporary basins, I just want to back up to that for a minute. I would like that, and I'll talk to Fred as well, but I want it noted that he should inspect those and make sure they're okay.
Yeah, he's there every day.
Within his process of inspections. Just because that, mean, I can see if they're functioning or not during a storm, but I think he's better prepared to inspect those, or better suited, I should say.
Yeah, and the suggestion too that installing the wattles to basically act as check dams, it looks like it wouldn't hurt. In worst case scenario, it would at least one extra protection before it starts going across the brook.
Do you have a specification for what kind of wattles, or just?
Generally straw wattles is what we said. If you have.
My question, and not to add another new item to this, but versus, and I guess maybe it's a question for Brandon, versus staking down the wattles, is it easier, not easier, that's not the phrase I want to use. Would it make more sense to use like a wattle that's just weighted more in general? So you wouldn't have to stake into the wetland resource area and just lay it, so it'd be a surface disturbance?
I don't know if any wattles.
Like a mulch wattle or something?
The only thing that's done, kind of what you're saying is, and I wouldn't recommend here, is if you keep losing the wattles, because you
Yeah.
have it staked,
Right.
you're talking, you get losing.
Yeah.
We've done essentially rip-wrap stone, that also, so.
Yeah, no.
That's the only thing, it's gonna be that heavy is what I'm trying to say in order to
Okay.
do it, so you gotta stake them. We drive stakes in the wetland all the time, and it's,
Yeah.
you're gonna pull off this, I really don't.
I was
don't
more
have
thinking
concerns
of
with it,
not, I guess I probably worded that wrong, not the stake holes, that's
Yeah.
not my problem, is, I think of straw as more of a brittle and fluid, where, or, they're contradictory, but possibly breaking easier than a mulch or something that's weighted and more compact, but if you
Yeah.
think straw is gonna do it, I'm fine.
Yeah, I've never seen I've never seen a straw wattle break up, like you're talking
Okay.
about. They're all encased in like a
It's a
nylon.
plastic
Right.
net,
Yeah. You know,
It's that mesh,
Yeah.
that
And,
plastic mesh.
But you would.
you know, if it gets to that level where that's usually, you just lose it, or it just
Yeah.
goes over. You know,
Okay.
so,
Well, you had said that it broke through, so I was assuming that it
when
literally
it broke, the stakes
through.
actually gave out, and just swung open.
Okay,
You know,
I would
yeah,
assume
so we had
you
to pick
meant
it back up and then
actual
stake it
wattle.
down. That's kind of what happens.
Okay,
They don't
okay.
physically break it.
I thought that's what
Yeah,
you meant,
no.
that's why I was like, maybe we should use something else. Okay, that's fine then.
So I've actually seen some things by the side of the highway where they have boulders like this, and then 40 feet down, they have another one where it's going downhill. Is that what you're talking about doing in?
That's
in here or
that's a
something?
permanent check dam, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so so
That's
that's
not-
not something that's.
No, it's.
No.
Yeah, you need a machine to do that.
I'm not-
You don't want
Yeah.
to go in and-
No.
No, but that's.
I just,
Yeah.
I don't want to know your job.
Yeah, no, but that's a good, I mean, that's
It's
essentially.
just a question I was asking about whether or not.
Any other questions, thoughts, suggestions? All right.
Keep working on it.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
appreciate the update. I mean, it seems
Yeah.
like you guys are definitely moving along in the right direction, and we'll keep getting our updates from Rebecca.
Yeah. So the other thing we want to discuss just is the cease and desist, essentially, where, typically when I think of cease and desist, it's when we fail to act. You actually have to go to a mechanism where you establish an enforcement order. You threaten somebody. I think, obviously, the reaction that we've had, without it, has been responsible. The other thing, we're trying to provide comfort and kind of road mapping where we're going with timeframes, and, committing to basically keep constructing these basins until they're done. We're not looking to go work somewhere else and not do these, and I don't think we've shown that that's what we're gonna do. But there is other work that needs to be done on the site, such as wells being drilled, foundations being poured, which really don't pertain and pull resources off of what we're talking about here for cleanup efforts. So, that's really what we'd like to, I mean, obviously, lots have been sold here, families have expectations to move into homes here with, so, we'd like to be able to continue working on those lots.
Can I actually ask a question related to well drilling? So the cease and desist was issued, I went out, I don't know if it was Monday or Tuesday, and there was someone out there drilling. Do you contact your contracted or subcontracted parties and let them know that there's cease and desist on the property? Because I had to go
Yeah.
out and tell them.
That wasn't my lot.
Okay.
That lot's already been sold. So there was a guy building, he's building his own house out there. That was lot 5.
Okay, but, so,
The answer is no, okay? but
Okay,
I
okay,
had-
fine.
But that was Friday night.
Yes,
okay?
no, I understand.
And when I went out there, I obviously would have,
yep,
okay? But,
Okay.
okay, the answer is, if
So-
that was my lot, I would be begging for forgiveness.
okay, so.
But it brings
I
to
gave-
the, it
I
brings
give
to the
myself
point
enough
where
trouble.
lots have been sold, it's probably worth
They need to
updating,
be
you know, if we
aware.
can provide a list of, you know, who
Sure.
the, just so we can provide them that paperwork that.
Yeah.
Yes, like you heard during the previous conversation, until we receive any documentation, well, on this, because it's a common driveway and it was filed separately, and the stormwater infrastructure was
Yeah.
included in that, that's your responsibility. But in terms of the separate lots, I need those, because I'm contacting you because that's who I
Yeah.
have, and
No.
until I know otherwise, that's who my contact is. Outside of that as well, in terms of the timeframes, can you provide written, or you or Bill provide written documentation saying these are our benchmark dates of what we expect? I know we just
Yeah.
talked about it,
Sure.
we said tomorrow afternoon, but, and then a couple of weeks we'll start, and then it's gonna take a couple weeks for the third basin, you were
Mhm.
saying? It would be great to have that reestablished. I know, I'm sure you've already submitted it to planning because of their stormwater oversight, but because that will supplement, okay, you guys are, and then we have those deadlines and we can hold you to those as we move
I'll meet
forward.
with Bill, well, then I'm gonna build a little buffer in, okay, that's weather
That's
dependent. Yeah,
fine,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
fine, and understandable, but just.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'll send you an email in the morning, because I'm sure planning board's gonna ask for the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that'll be easy, let me not make up something, let me talk to the contractor that's gonna have to commit to it.
So, trying to think what our options are here too.
So one other comment as well, based on the cease and desist. So the cease and, although we've done, and again, I'm very pleased with the fact that we have forcibly, through the cease and desist, through planning and Concom, but forcibly, paid attention to these issues and started the mitigation process, started the cleanup, and I want that to continue. The stormwater is more relief from, the stormwater infrastructure that's been created does affect the mitigation, any future violation from occurring, which is excellent, so long as it's functioning properly. But the building of those parts of the subdivision are more, I could see that being more relief from, closer relief from the stormwater cease and desist, or the stormwater focused cease and desist under planning. I'm not speaking for them, but I'm saying jurisdiction wise, where you've started the cleanup for the restorative work. And yes, the planting's probably, if the seeding and the rest of that work, because it's frozen and we're waiting for that, it's dependent on the weather, I understand that, but I would be hesitant to fully release you from, or hesitant to encourage the commission to fully release from the cease and desist, because yes, you've checked off one of the 3 or 4 boxes on that, but you haven't checked off all of them, and I'm not saying you need to check off all of them, but you're one step there. And I would like to see that work continue, so we're at a second step before we're releasing it, which it sounds like you're close to, because you've started the cleanup of the wetland.
But I don't wanna wait two more weeks to come back here, okay? So I guess my question is, okay, I'll go in the back of the room, I'll meet with him, I'll write you a schedule right now, okay? If we don't adhere to that schedule, you still
Yeah.
have the option to do
Well,
another season.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna go home at some point in time tonight, so that's not gonna happen, all right?
So the
But you
other,
have
the
the
option
other
is-
option
go
is-
ahead.
So the options are, you release the cease and desist,
And
For
can I
reasons
cut you off real quick? Does that need to happen at a public meeting, right?
No, so
it
that
does
was
not,
the other-
right? So it's
that's
not
the
like you
other-
have to wait 2 weeks, okay?
So you can establish at this public meeting that either by a certain date or upon a certain criteria that they've met in the construction sequence, or myself, or their wetland scientist, once it meets a certain criteria, then you can be released from it. So it doesn't have to be during a public meeting, but the discussion, the updates need to happen during a public meeting.
For
Right.
example, I mean, I think look at with cease and desist is, it obviously is incorporating the cleanup as well, which, you know, we haven't even met with fisheries. I mean, if
Right, we're
stuff's
doing that
frozen,
tomorrow.
Right.
it could be a month or spring.
Right.
It could be a long time before it's cleaned up, but obviously we're hoping to work.
Right, because that's kind of the way I would lean, and I want to opinions as well, but I was trying to think, can we set up certain benchmarks that we can say, look, if you can hit these certain benchmarks, these things happen, yes, we'll release the cease and desist, so you have some certainty knowing, all right, if we do X, Y, and Z, you know, we'll take it off, you don't have to wait till the next meeting. We can go from there, and I'm just trying to figure out what those benchmarks are, as Rebecca said, to make sure you guys have been great so far, to make sure everything continues to progress and everything's.
That's the way I kind of see it, that's what we're hoping to set up. We're
Yeah.
basically, when we talk about providing timeline and stuff, giving you expectations. If we fail
Right.
to meet those expectations, then certainly it warrants.
Right. You know, and I wonder if we could, you know, tell you that, you know, by submitting a timeline to Rebecca, and if it's a timeline that she approves of, you know, and, yeah, but I'm trying to think, how do we benchmark it? Basically,
that's- I think it
you
would
approve
be
the
better if
timeline,
we
but you also
get-
have to see that it's happening.
Yeah, I think it would be beneficial if you get the timeline from them. So whether I send that, so you send it to me tomorrow, I send it out. But the thing is, it wouldn't necessarily be approved by you because that has to happen in a public meeting. And it's not, like, you can authorize me to approve it or disapprove it, but I think any individually, you can provide me your thoughts back on the list if there's anything that needs to be added or changed around, and then I can approve it on behalf of your authorization. So long as I get the individual thoughts on it.
Some of this is gonna be fluid, and that's, and we're giving you,
Right.
I know.
we're
No,
more
I
than
know.
welcome to keep coming in here.
Yeah.
So let's say with the cleanup, I mean, next month, or in 2 weeks even, it really doesn't matter. I mean, we
Right.
can come in and provide you with an update, and we can talk about it and say, hey, listen, we'll let you guys work, this is what we've identified, give us a time frame when you're gonna do this, and we can have this discussion. You know,
Right,
just-
right.
That would be strongly suggested. I will say that in terms of reporting back. So in terms of the items on that list, so we have the basin that's been done. Or
Virtually
will be
done.
done, so.
Yeah.
All three need to be done, that's kind of what the priority, that's what we're gonna
Okay.
we're gonna give you timeframes on completing all three basins.
Okay,
Yeah.
but priority is one, which
Yeah.
I'm glad that's being addressed. Cleanup, you meeting, well, we're all meeting with, Mass Fishing Game tomorrow, and then I'll be walking the site as well. We're looking at the basin. And then, yeah, so I guess I'm having that same wrestling moment as well with, because I do agree that we need that criteria.
Okay, let me.
So the way
let
I
me
see
add
this
something.
is you want these guys to give you some roadmap that they're gonna work on. you know,
Yes, that
Some
they-
basins that will prevent any of this from happening in the future, right?
Right, and include within it, whether it's, it doesn't need to be
So you want to
completed
know that
before
they're
release.
taking care of, you know, the site so it doesn't happen in the
Yes.
future. And then what they can start working on, you know, they need to, you know, continue with their work. Whatever
Yeah.
they start up is not going to add, you know, in a detrimental, manner
Yes.
to that, right? So you want those kind of, you know, assurances, and it might be a couple of weeks before that stuff is done, but some of it's getting done right now, right?
Right,
It's getting done daily. Okay,
Yeah.
as much as they can do during the day, that's what they do, that's all they're working on.
Right.
So, you know, the other thought on this is, we can't pull our building permits, okay, until we, A, drill a well, okay? B, until I post the bond that has to be approved next Tuesday night. So theoretically, no work, I shouldn't say no work, okay? I mean, they've even stopped the work on the haunted house, okay, so,
but it's been such a great
Yeah.
result, Bob, there's a reason for that.
yeah, but.
So, to
we-
Bob's
we-
point though, we can't issue or sign off on any permits while the cease and desist is in place. And
So-
we can't provide the necessary documentation to other departments to continue with the project.
So I guess what I would ask for, okay, let's take the assumption, okay, and I know that's a.
Yeah, it's probably not gonna happen, but finish what you're gonna say,
Let's
yeah.
take the assumption that pond one is gonna get done tomorrow.
Sure.
Okay, is that a fair assumption?
Well,
Okay,
just go ahead.
okay, and these, I don't wanna use the word check dam because everybody will freak out.
So
Okay.
basically, yeah, you've got work that's gonna minimize
Right.
the possibility of damage happening in the future,
Right.
right? At some point, that gets to a level that we're happy with, and at
Yes.
that point, you can start doing, other work on the sites that might add more risk to that.
Yeah, but it
So-
really won't, because it's all stripped anyway. I mean, it's not, and you chime in if you'd like. There's no additional work that we're gonna be
Yeah,
doing
there's a
that's
certain
going to
risk
add to
level
this.
I think everybody wants to see you get to.
Right.
You've minimized the risk that nothing like this can happen in the future,
That's-
and that's all everybody's looking for.
That's why I'm
So-
asking that,
Check marks, I think, is what we're still
Thank you.
coming
It's the
back to.
benchmarks, yeah,
So
that's what it's
benchmarks,
stuck.
in order to be able to
Release the cease.
relieve them of the cease and desist. I would certainly see finishing the basin being one. 2, those straw wattles being out. 3, erosion controls consistently being kept in good condition, which we've been catching up on a little bit. And that's, what I have off the top of my head, along with the remediation work, which I can't really say as far as the Danforth Brookside goes until I hear from
Like you
Next
said,
fishing
it's
game
gonna be
tomorrow.
fluid,
So
it's gonna
that's-
change every time.
Right, it's gonna be
But I,
moving,
just to
so-
even go a step further, what I'm asking is that the cease and desist be removed. We're providing you
Right.
that, the risk that puts is that, and again, we haven't done anything to show this, but that the work isn't gonna continue all this. If you release the cease and desist, all of a sudden we're gonna stop working on all this stuff.
Right.
What we're saying is if we continue working on this every day, this basin's gonna be done here, this basin's gonna be done here.
Yeah.
And if we fail to meet those, at that point, you would impose putting the cease and desist back on, as opposed to saying,
All right.
hey, get all this work done, when you finish it all, we'll remove it, because that.
No, and that's
yeah.
not
Okay.
what, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm
Yeah.
saying is, and I believe Brian and Bill, and it seems like everyone's on the same page that we're agreeing with that. We're not saying because it's gonna be summer and then you're gonna have an open site through spring, nothing's gonna be done and it's gonna be a mess. What we, or what the board seems to want is the benchmark. So that's why I was saying, I don't believe it's gonna be lifted tonight because I certainly want the document stating that time frame and to be able to report back to the commission and say, hey, this is being done, or no, it's not. And then also that basin being done, because that seems to be the focal area of a repetitive issue. So once that's in place, again, functioning properly, it seems that will resolve some of it. The wattles, I think I would be leaning towards, if those things are completed, as you said, they're gonna be done by the weekend. We'll say,
no,
if
I
not
think they're
tomorrow.
gonna be done
Okay, but I'm
legitimately
saying,
tomorrow.
I'm saying just, they'll be done by the weekend, if not tomorrow is my point, so it won't affect next week. Or what you were talking about with
No,
the
but I
pond.
can drill wells and stuff like that.
So-
Okay.
No, right now you
No, you
can't.
can't, yeah.
No, right.
So,
Right.
So you want to be able to drill wells.
yes.
Yeah, which would be your.
So that's what we've got to aim
So
to fix.
if you meet the basin, you put the wattles down, you fix the silt fence everywhere on site, specifically on those 2, if not 3 breakout points, you start doing the restoration work. And again, I'm saying start, which it sounds like you've already started.
Yeah.
I would, and that can all happen by this weekend, if not tomorrow at the end of the day. I would think then you follow what you're referring to, and the commission I think is referring to, where, okay, we have the document to hold you by, so we can lift the cease and desist and say, so long as you're keeping up with this, you should be fine.
Okay.
The
So,
second you're not, it gets back on, you can't do any more work, but that needs to be the
okay,
focus
so
of
let's
this project.
narrow this right down, okay? Because that's what I'd like to do, if you don't
Okay.
mind. The basin has to be complete.
Yeah.
Mhm.
the silt fence around the perimeter where it's supposed to be, needs to be inspected, okay?
And
So,
repaired, yeah.
which it should be anyway.
Sure.
Okay, so that's nothing new. We're going to put some wattles.
Yep.
Okay, beyond, into the resource area.
Yep.
And,
Timeline.
And
And
continue,
Timeline for the
And timeline.
remaining basins.
and continue the cleanup as weather permits.
Right.
right.
Yeah, I think those would be appropriate benchmark, things to hit where I could see then removing the cease, they're saying as long as everything's still continuing.
What?
You understand what they're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that make
We're
sense?
gonna be pretty much done with that pond, we'll be done with that pond tomorrow. We're gonna go we'll check, make sure all the silt fence is good, but I'm pretty sure we've doubled it up everywhere that it was bad, and we got hay bales and.
Yeah, I'll be out tomorrow too, so I'll.
Yeah, you'll be walking tomorrow.
Two rows
So
of wattles.
then what would be the process? Now that we've
So the
kind of
process-
discussed it and had an idea, can we just then say, okay, let's do as we've
Take a
discussed?
roll call.
Even
Okay.
though we said, no, we're not gonna do the list.
And then-
Just
and
cut
do
the
as we
list.
discussed,
And
to have the
Yes.
five
Let's get it
Right.
done.
benchmarks.
Get it done.
I agree.
Five benchmarks are met.
Yep.
I'm done.
What's that?
If something could be done.
Give conservation agent the authority
You did-
to
you
lift
did
the
take all
cease
this. You should have known, it's all.
And so long as.
The cement, I can't get right down to dig under
But
the wall.
that's really just an.
It's exactly the same thing.
Right,
with it.
right.
Okay.
Okay. So, does that make sense?
No,
Yeah, okay.
no, I think that's a
All right.
good
Yeah,
working.
we're good.
Board-wise, everybody, does that make sense? Good with that?
We're good with that.
We're good.
All right, we're gonna do a roll call vote.
We're not
The
gonna
official-
reiterate it 3 times.
All right,
Yeah.
so, we're not gonna reiterate times. So, a yay vote would be that you were in agreement that as discussed, we're gonna set up a series of 5 benchmarks, the completion of which, to Rebecca's liking, basically, or Rebecca's okay. At that point, we're gonna empower her to release the cease and desist, knowing full well that if, restoration plans go off the rails, we can always reestablish it, okay?
Right.
Does this make sense?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so, no pain, yay or nay? All right, Emily Winter,
Yay.
Jeff?
Yay.
All right, and I'm a yay myself. Make sense? Okay. No, thank you guys, good luck.
We have,
Oh,
What
you
about-
No, I'm going home. This is under 2 minutes, that's all you guys.
What is your
Go ahead,
name, Columbo or
please.
something
Go
like
ahead,
that?
go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, it's
Yeah.
really easy, all you gotta do is say yes or no.
Yeah.
Yes, but no.
So, we're trying,
Oh,
Bob's trying
right,
for building
okay.
permits
Yeah.
on a couple
This is-
lots here. What, no?
This is easy, I was thinking of something else.
So what we did was when we designed these septic systems and the grading is we showed a 2 to 3 foot boulder wall here to prevent the grading from going into the buffer zone. And we kind of put that right along the buffer zone. When we went to pull the building permit, Rebecca was concerned with how close that was. It's basically right on the line. And, our feeling is we designed it intentionally to avoid the filing. So we didn't really want to come in and file for that. Even though it's on the line, it's not within the area.
Yeah.
So, I think as a
The road
problem.
control's not changing.
Well, I say, what I would say is, if it is a wall and it is in close proximity to that wattle, if we could maybe install some additional hay bales on the upland side of that wattle on end, provide some additional protection, does that give you guys enough comfort to allow her to sign that building permit?
So my clarification, and
Yeah,
I was interrupting because I wanted it clarified as you're explaining this. The original road control is not being moved. You're either adding to it or not. That's your question. Okay. That's just one to clarify.
I told you this was a 2-minute one.
I mean, I'm fine with that.
Fine with the additional revision?
Yeah, to come
Gotta
in.
take another vote.
Okay, let's get the hell up.
Yeah.
Alright.
Thank you.
All right,
It's the nicest thing you said all night. So you're all set, so you're just gonna,
Thank you.
Reggie, you're just gonna get this done as fast as you can. Finish everything.
yeah.
And then,
Okay.
good luck. Let's hope it.
Rebecca, you're gonna be out there?
I will be out there, I will be with Seth and
Yeah,
the game at
maybe
10 a.m.
tomorrow.
So it'll probably be
We used to
about
say
an hour
get her
after
done.
that.
You can
Get
probably
her
done
done.
around noon.
Commercial
time.
construction.
Yeah,
Alright.
I should get there around then, or just before.
Okay, yeah, because we
She's
should have
done.
it
We're
open.
gonna get one more thing you gotta vote on.
Oh, that's.
Rebecca, you in good shape right now? Do we have
You're
anything
dying.
outstanding?
You're tapping out.
He's trying to tap
I
out.
think we're all set.
All right. I would like to make a motion that we officially close the February 5th, 2019 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission.
Second.
Bill, oh, I thought Bill was going to get me. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night.
Good night.
Go home.
Everyone's getting
Thank you,
punchy.
BATV. Yes.